My friend keeps getting ghosted after first dates. How can I tell her why this is happening? I have this friend who I've known for 7 years. For the longest time she's been complaining about going out on first dates, only met through a dating app, and getting ghosted, or the classic, this isn't going to work out. There are two main reasons actually. The first is that she's a pretty hefty lady, and all of her profile pics are of her from deceptive angles with lots of filters. The filters also cover her constantly greasy hair. She really has an issue with showering. I was cursed with a very sensitive nose. Not only does she just smell bad in general, but I can tell that a good bit of that scent is coming from down below. She just constantly smells like vagina. She told me this story of her taking a guy home from the bar one time. Things were getting hot and heavy and clothes started coming off. Long story short, before they could go any further, he took a bathroom break and made a run for it out the window, guessing the smell down there. Essentially, not only does she catfish, she just reeks really bad. How can I tell her? Or do I even bother? Stories number 2. Aita for leaving my dad's birthday dinner after overhearing my sister's comment about my miscarriage. A few months ago me, 28F, and my sister, Eva, 33F, realized that we were both pregnant. I'd say she was about 6 weeks further than I was. She's been struggling with infertility, so we were all happy for her. I have an older son, 2M, with my husband, 32M. Sadly, a couple weeks ago I lost my baby. We told my family. They were all supportive, but I did sort of pull away from them. They would have tried to avoid discussing Eva's baby around me, but I didn't want to overshadow her, especially since she's wanted this for a long time. I also didn't want to be reminded of my own loss whenever I saw her. So I haven't been to my parents' place for Sunday dinner since, or really spent time with Eva, which we had been doing a lot before. I replied vaguely to any messages about my absence. Wasn't the best communication from me. Yesterday my parents were hosting family dinner for my dad's birthday. I'd been thinking about going because I missed my family, and while of course the pain of losing my child has not faded, I'm at a point where I can at least put it a little to the side to be there for my sister and my new niece when she is born. So I let my family know that we would be coming. However, we had to get a gift for my dad, and then my son had a bit of a tantrum, so we got to my parents' place about an hour late. I wished my dad and then went to the kitchen, where my mom, Eva, and my SILs were. But before I went in, I heard them say my name, so I stopped. My mom was saying something like, "Well, I guess, OP's not coming," and Eva said, "What did you expect? She probably changed her mind and is just staying home again." Honestly, I'm sorry for her, but you would think she was the first woman to ever lose a kid, and it's not even her first kid. They then kept talking about other things, but I just wanted to leave. I went and got my husband, who was with my dad, and brothers in the living room. I told my dad I was really sorry, but we needed to go. They all protested, but my husband could see how upset I was, so he didn't. We got my son and left. When we got home, I just kind of cried for a while. My husband asked me what happened, and I told him he was angry that she said that, but thought we shouldn't have abruptly left because my dad had been looking forward to seeing us, and my son missed his cousins. After this, I was feeling conflicted. Later my brother texted me saying my dad had been really upset about us leaving and brought it up at dinner, which caused a whole fight because Mom and Eva realized that I must have heard them talking, and my dad was mad about it. My brother said that it was pretty bad and he wished I had just stayed so none of it would have happened. Obviously Eva didn't mean for me to hear that. They were all just frustrated that I'd been AWOL for so long. Now I feel bad, because I didn't mean to ruin dinner. Obviously what Eva said was hurtful, but I can see how my actions might have led to her saying something out of anger, and I could have talked to her about it later instead of just leaving it. ETA for additional context. My family is the type to just drop by at each other's places and see one another multiple times throughout the week besides just Sunday dinner. Lately I've been kind of fielding off any requests for people to visit. I just want to emphasize how close my family is and how abnormal it is for me to not be seeing them regularly even for a little bit. I haven't been ghosting them, but I just text them saying I'm not feeling up to it for dinner and kind of leave it there. My sister and my mom have always been closer to each other, as have me and my dad. Additionally, my brothers are closer to her since they're all closer in age. I mentioned this in a comment, but we didn't text anyone saying we were going to be late since my family is usually pretty lax about time. Me and my husband usually show up early though, so it's unusual for us to be late and might have been why they thought we weren't coming. Also my son was continuing to be a handful all the way there, so that kept us busy and we kind of didn't think about notifying anyone. I've started looking into grief counseling, now that I feel like I can at least talk about it. As far as she's told us, my sister hasn't had a miscarriage before, she just had trouble getting pregnant to begin with. From what my brother told me, my sister and mom didn't admit to saying anything, they just kind of looked at each other once my dad mentioned me leaving, and he noticed and asked about it. Then one of my SILs who was also in the kitchen, my other brother's wife, mentioned what they said and my dad got mad. My other brother was also apparently angry with them, and it just turned into my mom and sister trying to defend themselves, my dad and other brother yelling, and my brother, who texted me, trying to stay out of it. Update. Hi everyone, I want to thank you all for the support and feedback on my last post. This update is mostly about a few different conversations that I had. I took your suggestions and called my dad, apologizing for leaving early. He completely understood. We talked a bit and he asked if we could go out to lunch this week because he missed seeing me, so we made plans. Then, I talked to my husband and told him that I didn't think I could have stayed and still thought leaving was the best thing for us. He apologized for invalidating my feelings and said he would have liked for us to spend time with family but not at the cost of my mental well-being. He offered to call my brother, not the one who texted me, to set up a play date for our son with his kids so my son could see some of his cousins, which I appreciated. Later, my mom called. I guess my dad told her we talked, and she apologized for taking so long to call, saying she felt ashamed and didn't know how to talk to me. She said she wouldn't have let Eva say that if they'd known I was there and that she didn't mean it. Eva has been hormonal and frustrated, and my mom thought calling her out at that point would have just made things worse. She felt terrible for hurting my feelings. I thanked her for the apology but told her I needed more time before meeting her. After this, Eva texted me, and I wanted to hear her out, so I called. She apologized a lot and emphasized that she didn't mean it and regretted saying it, attributing it to the same thing my mom had. Apparently she and BL also had a big fight about it when they got home, which delayed her talking to me. We had a long conversation, in which she confessed that she had a few early miscarriages before they even told us she was pregnant, but she felt she had to keep smiling through it, which made her slightly resent how I was handling my situation. I told her I was hurting and keeping my distance so she could enjoy her pregnancy. She felt bad for misunderstanding and thinking I was shutting everyone out. I assured her that this wasn't the case. I hadn't let anyone in, and with her being pregnant, it was tough for me. I wished her luck but told her I hoped she could understand why I didn't think I could be there with her. She was sad but agreed. We talked more, and by the end, things were better. I texted my family group chat with a long message about how I was feeling and why I would be taking space from meetups, because I feel I need it after this. While the apologies eased my mind and I can see myself forgiving them in the future, I am still hurting, and I think right now, I need to spend time with my husband and son and handle my grief with a professional. Thank you all again for reading this, and I hope this answers your questions about what happened next. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Stories number 3. I laughed at my sister's tragedy and now I'm uninvited to the baby shower I'm planning. My sister is due after in early January and we're planning her baby shower for early December. She decided she wanted to use my mother's maiden name, Rafferty, as her daughter's name, not a tragedy itself, and I guess it works as a unique name. But yesterday I texted my sister that I needed to get the custom items with my niece's name ordered ASAP so they arrive in time for the shower. My sister then let me know they're going with an alternative spelling of Rafferty. I texted back, an alternative spelling of our mother's maiden name. My sister wants to spell it Rafferty. So I sent back a bunch of laughing emojis and she asked, "What's so funny?" I tried to explain that no one will pronounce that as Rafferty and she'll probably get plenty of the same mispronunciations. She told me I was being ridiculous. I texted back, "My poor niece, little Miss Farty Ray." I was uninvited to the shower and my mom told me today my sister doesn't want me as the godmother anymore. But, like, Rafferty is really bad, isn't it? Someone needs to tell her, right? Some of top comments. Commenters 1, yup, it's Rafferty, no matter what sis wants to believe. Reply, thank you. Commenters 2, Rafferty, MGM, expected release 2025, a hard-boiled detective living and working in the heart of Pittsburgh's Sulphur District, is tasked with investigating the theft of 12,000 durians. In an unexpected twist, the alleged mastermind of the crime, the CEO of Chipotle, was also Ray's high school chemistry teacher. Reply, OMG, I needed this. Commenters 3, that's terrible. She is going to hate her name. Out of curiosity, how old is your sister? Reply, my sister is 26. We both have fairly plain names and my sister was always jealous of people with more exotic names. She told my mom that spelling it Rafferty will be obvious that it's pronounced Rafferty, but it makes it look more girly. I mean, yeah, girls fart too. Commenters 4, Rafferty comes under the category of names I wouldn't use, not a big fan of surnames as first names, but which I can see tick some boxes that would make them appealing to some people. Honors your mum, sounds gender neutral, could use the nickname Raf. Rafferty comes under the category of names that sound like jokes. No wonder you laughed. Do what you can to dissuade her. Everyone's going to pronounce it Rafferty. Reply, I agree. I wouldn't use it myself, but I get that it honors my mom and her family and it's not too out there. Thank God my mother wasn't born a Lewandowski. No offense to the Lewandowskis out there. My mom is mildly annoyed. She wants to honor her last name but totally respell it. But my mother's opinion is that it's my sister's child and no one but she and her husband really have a say in the name. Apparently my sister insists everyone will understand it as Rafferty and not Rafferty, SMDH. What about BL? I texted him last night to ask if he knew about the colorful respelling. Surprise, surprise, he hates it and immediately thinks, Rafferty, too, but he doesn't know how to approach it because my sister's pregnancy has been increasingly emotional and he's already walking on eggshells. Uneasy face. Update post. Editor's note, I combined the post and the continuation of it in the comments into one section. I don't know if updates are allowed here, but here it is and sorry it's long and I've been having a hard time submitting it. Is there a character limit? I'll try posting some and put the rest in the comments. So we had an intervention on Rayfarty. I know everyone said to send a link to the original post to my sister to show her that 103% of the global population would call her daughter Rayfarty and that would be the easiest thing to do. But some commenters said some pretty gnarly things about my sister that she doesn't need to read and feel worse about herself, but I wanted to address a few things that came up. First, for those saying I shouldn't bother paying for the baby shower anymore, I had no plans to not continue to pay and help out. Disagreements and fighting aside, I love my sister and want her to go into motherhood filled with love and support, regardless of whether she wants my support or attendance at the event. Second, my sister's husband was made aware of the spelling change of Rafferty to Rayfarty about a month before my original post. He said he didn't think much of it until he saw it written down and immediately saw it as Rayfarty. 2. He said her emotions had been getting worse throughout the pregnancy and he didn't know how to approach her about going back to the original spelling. He had hoped that once she gave birth, all the hormones would somehow leave her body, she'd come to her senses, and it would be a non-issue. Third, a lot of you were lumping my mom in with my sister and said some pretty horrible things about her. 2. All my mom knew was from my sister calling her to complain that I laughed at her for slightly changing the spelling. My mom just assumed it was a minor change like Rafferty until I told her to grab a pen and paper and I'd spell it out. For her, once she saw it was Rayfarty, she was team save this child. The rest of the saga is in the comments. The rest. Now for those of you who told me I didn't have any tact and my reaction was mean, my reaction was because 1. People would call the poor girl Rayfarty her entire life for the sake of my sister being quirky. 2. Pregnancy brain aside, surely my sister would realize her child will be called Rayfarty once it's pointed out, have a laugh, change her mind, and this will end up being a funny story to tell at her daughter's future wedding or something. And 3. My sister is a bit of a joker, so I also initially thought she was just pulling a prank or joking. But if she was joking, she took the joke really, really far. She spent $400 on a mural painted on one wall in the nursery. She wanted to debut the finished nursery to everyone at the baby shower, including her husband, who was forbidden to see it beforehand, that had Rayfarty incorporated into it that now needs to be repainted. She also bought herself a birthing gift. Is this even a thing? She'd have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital, a $900 plus gold bracelet with R, A, E, F, A, R, T, and Y charms. The baby book also has Rayfarty embroidered on the cover. I contacted my sister's best friend Katie, not her real name, if my sister has told her anything about the spelling change she found out about Rayfarty after the blow up with my sister, as my sister wanted to get Katie on her side. Katie, who's a teacher, was equally horrified about the spelling and told me this is the worst attempt at a creative name she's ever seen. The intervention of sorts, the farty party, if you will, included me, my sister, her husband, his mother and father, my mother, and Katie. My sister refused to believe anyone could possibly see Rayfarty as Rayfarty and that we were just mad that she was taking creative license and that everyone does that nowadays. My sister said children are not that cruel to bully her daughter for her name, and Katie said plenty of kids are cruel enough and the others would join in so they're not singled out themselves. My sister countered that as long as all the adults are pronouncing it correctly that it'll be no problem, and Katie told her that not only would the adults not know how to pronounce it to begin with, but that as long as fart is in the name, kids will latch right onto that. I was happy Katie was there because she's shared interesting names her students have had over the past few years, so I knew her opinion on this would probably be the only one to sway her. My sister cried for about 10 minutes and finally agreed to entirely change the name because even Rafferty was tainted because we had all ruined it for her. We told her to take her time to consider a new name. She told us she still wanted to honor my mother and she suggested she'd combine my mother's first name with her mother-in-law's name and created a name on the spot that included a crass term for a lesbian. When my mother pointed that out, she started crying again and accused us of not letting her be a mom, and her husband suggested we leave it for now and we should all go and give her space. It's been radio silence until my sister texted me a couple of hours ago that she and her husband landed on Theodora and she is absolutely in love with it. She even decided by my unborn niece looks like a Theodora in the ultrasounds. She got those creepy 3D ones done where every baby looks like the same copper potato. I replied that that was lovely, and that I'm so happy she's happy. It's not my taste, but at least it's not the Odoruf or some crap like that. So there you go, my niece has been saved from being called Rayfarty. I'm invited to the baby shower again and I know this is just a little blip with my relationship to my sister and will be fine, but Katie will be taking over as godmother, which is fine by me. I can always be godmother to their next child, who will probably be named something like Tara M. Sue. Thank you all for seeing the same thing I did and letting me know stopping Rayfarty from coming into existence was the right thing to do. Some of best comments. Commenter 1, she also bought herself a birthing gift. Is this even a thing? She'd have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital. What the actual fuck, silly name aside, what is this? Some kind of social media fueled look at me and how wonderful I am to get a gift as a reward for giving birth. This feels very tacky to me. The whole push present concept gives me the ick. Reply, I agree, I've never heard of this before and it seems crazy. But also if I ever ruin my body and push out a watermelon I'd kinda want a reward, too, though. Commenter 2, pretty please tell us the amalgamation of her mother and Mil's names. Reply, there's probably no anonymity left on this situation, so here it goes. My mom is Leslie, sister's Mil is Yvonne. The name was Les Yvonne, pronounced Les Yvonne, like my niece is the lesbian baroness of some German village. I'll have the staff prepare the Birkenstocks for Les Yvonne Fartenberg's arrival. New update post. Title, Ray Farty has made it to the party. I don't know if you remember my post from a few weeks back about my sister wanting to name my niece Ray Farty, pronounced Rafferty and not at all like Ray Farty. My niece has been born 2 weeks earlier than expected, but she is healthy and home now. When my sister first held her, she said, she's so adorable, and got an idea. She wanted to change from Theodora to Theodorable. Thankfully my BL put his foot down. He did give her carte blanche on the middle name when it was supposed to be Rafferty. They went with Rose to counterbalance Rafferty being different now that Theodora was the normal name, and because my sister just cannot not be extra, she chose Jacksonville. Theodora Jacksonville. A Ray Farty Rose by any other name would smell as sweet. We are not from Florida. BIL is not from Florida. I don't think my sister's ever been to Florida, much less to Jacksonville. I asked her how she came up with it and she said she always liked geographical names, which is news to me because I specifically remember a conversation about names months ago and she said she hated when parents name their kids place names like Camden or Brooklyn because they're trying way too hard. But you do you, Ray Farty's mom. Also, our city has a pretty sizable Polish-American population and people will certainly try to pronounce it like it's a Polish last name, but at least the craziness is confined to the middle name and there's no gas or slurs involved. Sum of comments. Commenter 1, thanks for the update on Ray Farty. At least it's a middle name, and thank goodness BL stopped the other craziness. Reply, props to my BL this time around. He said the look on the nurse's face when my sister suggested Theodorable was all he needed. LOL. Commenter 2, the entire internet remembers Ray Farty. Your sister is a legend, but that middle name though a full-on tragedy. Reply, when we heard the name, my mother warned me, let's not go through this again, it's just the middle name, so I behaved myself. Commenter 3, does your sister understand the legacy she has created? Reply, a few people know about the post, but I don't think she does or is too embarrassed to admit she knows. But she's not really on social media much except for water talk vids. Editor's note, water talk is people sharing recipes for like flavored water, but sometimes no water is involved or it is a monstrosity posing as water. Curtis Connor did a video on it if you want to find out more, but regardless it's certainly a more niche community. Commenter 4, it has even made its way to TikTok. Reply, Sully, she must know by now. Sorry not sorry, I did what I needed to do to save Miss Farty Ray. Stories number 4. Aita for leaving my boyfriend on the side of the road. I 26 female and my boyfriend Nick 27 male have been dating for almost a year, and something that has always bothered me is how Nick does not believe in maintaining or taking care of his vehicles. Background. To give some context, Nick bought his car brand new about 5 years ago and has put about 70,000 miles on the vehicle. Since purchasing the vehicle he has never had an oil change nor does he do any kind of regular maintenance. I would like to clarify by saying Nick's refusal to maintain his vehicle is not due to any kind of financial insecurity. Nick has an incredible job that pays him very fairly as a hobby and side job. I like to restore vehicles for a profit. I am by no means a mechanic, I mostly clean up the vehicles, do bodywork and paint restoration. However, I do have a pretty fundamental understanding of cars and I know how to do the basics. Story. Nick called me yesterday on my day off and told me he was about 10 minutes from my house and that he had a flat tire and asked if I could come to help him out. I grabbed my tool bag and headed out. When I got there, Nick did not only have a flat tire but his front left rotor was cracked. Rotor is part of the car's brakes, and his rim was bent. To hell, I was telling Nick that his car was undrivable and that he needed to call a tow. Nick started arguing with me, telling me that it was just a flat tire and that it was not a big deal. I tried showing Nick how bad the damage was, but he insisted I was overreacting and that he just needed me to change the tire. I refused, and in Nick's own words I started mothering him on how poorly he takes care of his car. The argument got heated and Nick lashed out at me and started saying things like, just because you have a set of pink tools and watch YouTube doesn't make you a fucking mechanic. After Nick said this, I started to pack up my tools and told him that he was right. I'm not a mechanic, but that he should probably call one because I'm not changing his tire. I left Nick on the side of the road and he refuses to talk to me until I apologize for abandoning him. Am I the asshole? Verdict, not the asshole. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. So to summarize, your BF asked for your help. You offered help, informed him of the seriousness of the problem. BF didn't like your answer, told you what to do even though you know better. This became heated. Your BF was extremely offensive. You rightly left him. I'll be blunt, you BF seriously sucks. To blow up over this is a big red flag. Your NTA. Good luck with your car hobby though, sounds awesome. Do you ever get your hands on classics? Reply, I wish. I mostly buy and work on cars that are under 10K and try to sell them for a 20 to 30% profit. Subaru, old Fords and classic Chevys have a special place in my heart though. Commenter 2. NTA and yikes. If he won't maintain a high-end purchase, how does he treat his home? He has made fun of your car knowledge, yelled at you for making an accurate statement about his broken car, and demanded an apology, none of which you deserved. Is this how he normally responds in stressful situations? Reply. I'm gonna answer your question with way more detail than you asked for. I was raised by a single mom. I never had a father figure growing up. When something would break in our house I would teach myself how to fix it, and my mother always encouraged me to chase how mechanically inclined I was. After I met Nick's parents, me and his father really bonded over our love for cars and our love for fixing them. Every time I would go over to Nick's parents' house, me and his father would inevitably end up in the garage tinkering. Nick has always been insecure about how quickly me and his father developed a relationship. Nick obviously is not very mechanically inclined and has never shown any interest in cars. The relationship I have with Nick's father has been a sore spot in our relationship for a long time, and I think is why Nick lashed out the other day. Top comments. Commenter 1. NTA, he has a lot of nerve, picking a fight with someone he called for help. Commenter 2. Calls for mechanical help, berates OP about being a mechanic. Commenter 3. Yeah, NTA, she has enough expertise for him to ask for a favor, but the moment he hears something he doesn't like, she's suddenly not smart enough to help dump him. Commenter 4. NTA, he's put 70,000 miles on his car and has never changed the oil. WTF. I'm amazed the car still runs. If you like to work on cars, then you won't want to be with someone that's that cavalier about car repair and maintenance, and that's unforgivable of him to insult you like that with the pink tools. Comment. I think it's time to leave the boyfriend, and not just his car, by the side of the road. Commenter 5. The pink tools line is sexism at its finest. He's telling her she can't possibly know what she's talking about because she's, gasp. The horror, a woman. I should leave him at the side of the road permanently. Update. Update. AITA for leaving my boyfriend on the side of the road. Vehicle update. Nick drove a Nissan Versa, and after I left him on the side of the road he ended up calling a tow truck mobile mechanic. When the actual mechanic got there he told Nick everything I told him. The mechanic also refused to change his tire and told him he would only tow his car to a mechanic shop. Nick refused to tell me what all the damage was to his vehicle, but the damage must have been pretty bad because instead of fixing his Nissan and wasting all that money he decided he was just going to get a new car. Relationship update. Earlier today I invited Nick over for dinner. I spent the whole day cooking and baking Nick's favorite dishes, braised oxtail soup, drunken potatoes, and tiramisu for dessert. When Nick got to my house he was in a wonderful mood and had seemed to have forgotten/forgiven all about the argument we had. After small talk and finishing dinner, I took a deep breath and started to tell Nick how much I care about him, but that I no longer wished to continue our relationship romantically or otherwise. At first, Nick was shocked, but quickly his shock turned into anger. Nick felt I was insane for ending our relationship over such a petty, unimportant argument. Eventually, Nick tried to apologize, but I told him an apology was no longer something I was looking for. The whole time Nick was talking I sat there on the opposite end of the table listening with both ears, allowing him to say what he felt he needed to. When Nick was done I looked at him and reminded him of some of the wonderful times we had together. I reminded him that we are both adults and we can choose to either end a one-year relationship with arguing and anger, or we can choose to end things on good terms and finish a lovely last meal together. Nick calmed down after this and his tone of voice started to match mine. We didn't talk for much longer, but luckily I planned ahead and had some tiramisu wrapped up for him along with a small bin of all the things he kept at my house. Before Nick left I gave him a big hug and told him that if he ever needed someone to show him how to change a tire I would be happy to send him a YouTube tutorial. Life update. Over these last few days, I decided to treat myself and buy my neighbor's old 1978 Ford Ranger, red. The truck is an absolute hunk of junk and will probably take me over a year before it starts to look somewhat recognizable, but I figured it would be more time and cost effective for me to obsess over an old broken truck than it would be for me to fixate on broken men. I plan on staying single for a while and hope to take better care of not only myself but to also focus on my 3 German Shepherds more. Happy re-editing everyone. Stories number 5. Aita for kicking my fiancé out after joking he got me pregnant on purpose. I, 23F, made a post a couple days ago on here talking about a joke my fiancé made at Thanksgiving which concerned me. That post got taken down, locked. This is a repost update. I, 23F, have been with my fiancé, 26M, for 3 years. We met whilst I was on holiday and a few weeks after, he followed me on Instagram and the rest is history. We got engaged last year and a month later found out I was pregnant. We have a beautiful 6-month-old. We hosted Thanksgiving this year and my fiancé was drinking quite heavily, and after dinner, Me and my mom were talking about the wedding, which my parents are paying for. I overheard my fiancé tell my brother, who was just as drunk as him, that he needed to tie me down and get me pregnant before I realized what a dickhead he was. They laughed it off, but it rubbed me the wrong way because our baby was not planned. I wasn't ready for a child and we were using condoms, but after a few instances where the condom broke, I decided it would be safer if I got on birth control. The first month on, because I got pregnant, we were told that could happen and he said he would pull out to be safe, but I still got pregnant. I was scared ASF, but I personally didn't want to get an abortion. I 100% believe in the right to get an abortion, I just didn't want one, and so decided to keep the baby. I work for my dad's company and my fiancé works at a country club. Money wasn't necessarily why I didn't want a baby, I just wanted to do more before I started a family. I spoke to my fiancé about what he said, and at first he said he didn't remember saying it, which was believable because of how drunk he was, but then he said it was just a joke and it was meant as a compliment because I'm so amazing. So I said okay, good, because we're getting a prenup. I was just joking, but I was also wanted to see how he reacted, and he was pissed. He said why the fuck would he sign a prenup, that we have a baby together, a house together, and that he would not sign one. How we wouldn't need one because we're never separating, and that me mentioning a prenup is insulting and emasculating. I never felt threatened or anything like that, but he did make me uncomfortable and he woke our baby up, so I told him to leave, which he did. The day after I kicked him out, he sent me a long apologetic message about how it was out of character of him to get loud, which it was. He's never acted like that before, and I replied saying I appreciate the apology, but I still just need a day or two to think everything through. The next day he sent a bouquet to the apartment. Sunday he sent me a booking confirmation of a massage he booked for me at the club and offered to come over to watch our son and cook dinner tonight. He sent me a message saying that I'm being an a-hole and that I'm taking a meaningless joke to heart and that he's wasting money he could be saving for the wedding on the hotel. But now things that went over my head before, I'm starting to think is sus, but breaking up my family over this doesn't seem right. Am I overthinking this, being an a-hole? Sum of comments. Commenter 1. If you have a house together, why is he sending flowers to the apartment? Reply. We closed on a house, but we're staying at my apartment until the lease is up. Commenter. Please 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 do not marry him, call off this relationship. He wants you barefoot and pregnant. Run. The pill is super easy to tamper with. All your ex needs to do is microwave your birth control pills for a short time and your birth control pills are completely useless. Reply. I didn't know this. Wow. I never even considered him doing anything like that. I take them like clockwork, so it definitely wasn't that I missed a day or anything like that. Commenter. I haven't seen it said yet, but you mentioned having 2 trust funds, one that you got when you were 18. Does he know this? Think about it. If you don't have a prenup, he'll have access to that trust fund. Don't be naive. And the condom? Come on. He totally baby trapped you. Wake up. Reply. Yeah, he knows about the trust fund. He was at my brother's 18th where my dad said to him not to spend all his money at once, and he asked if all the siblings got one, which we did. Update edit. Update. A lot of people were asking for context. When I said I wanted a prenup at the time, I wasn't being serious. Maybe I was being trying to get a reaction, but based on the 3 years we've been together, I would have never imagined he'd react the way he did. Why did the joke bother me so much? About a year ago he lost his job. He was never really clear why. For the next 3/4 months he didn't really do much. He said he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do next, and that was the first time he brought up having kids, indicating that he was ready. We had a candid conversation on my part about how I want kids, just not anytime soon. I enjoy my job. I had trips planned and I wanted to be married first. He agreed with me that we should wait 3-4 years. My dad's company got a contract at the club, which is how he got his job there. But during the time he was out of work, my girls would joke that he's a stay-at-home boyfriend and that I'm the provider and he'd be a stay-at-home dad because I was paying the bills/rent by myself, which at the time didn't bother me. I used to live there by myself before we got together, so it wasn't a big deal, but I guess it was them that first made me question. To be honest, I don't know how long the condoms were breaking. A lot of people are saying they've never had them break, and I can't say I remember it ever happening before. I noticed the first time that it looked like it had split, and then I checked it the next time that was also broken, which is when I decided to get an IUD, which he didn't want me to. But I stood my ground and we compromised and I got on the pill. I know we should have continued using condoms, but he said he'd ran out and that I'm on the pill and don't need them. In hindsight, yes, I should have insisted we still use them, but I choose not to have that battle. I thought we'd be okay. He knew my opinion on abortion and that I wouldn't get one. If I got pregnant, I would raise the baby unless it was for a medical reason. Money-wise, my family's successful. I work for my dad's company. I have 2 trust funds, one of which I got at 18 before I fell pregnant. I was making plans to start my own house flipping business, but I decided to put that on hold. I still work from home on flexible hours, but he said once we're married he wants me to stop working so I can focus on our kids and that he'll support us. But I've never really liked that idea, mainly because, although I've never had to worry about money, my parents always taught us the importance of financial stability and my mom's always said to never be financially dependent on anyone, plus my fiancé's current salary I'm not sure would cover all of our expenses. The only reason why I haven't told my dad is because they have a good relationship and I don't want to blow everything up over an overreaction on my part. Some of comments. Commenter 1, don't you think there was a reason he didn't want you to get an IUD? He can't tamper with that, but he did with the latex. Reply. He sent me a few things where people IUDs went wrong and yeah I probably should have gone with my gut but he convinced me the pill would be the best option but I did speak to my mom because he's come back home. Commenter 2, the real problem is him not supporting your career. He should be supporting your business and your job, not making you be a stay-at-home housewife. That's ridiculous. Yes, mothers with young children can still start businesses, but they have to be appropriately supported. Can you say he can give you that support? Reply. Probably not. He's been quite blunt in that he doesn't think I could do both effectively and after our son was born he said he didn't want a large age gap between kids. Update post. I23F made a post last week about a joke my fiancé, 26M, made at Thanksgiving while drunk. To everyone that hasn't seen my older post, he joked that he got me pregnant to tie me down and I didn't know what to make of it. So I posted on here to get outside opinions. I didn't want to initially talk to my friends or family about it because they're all quite close to him and I didn't want to make a mountain out of a molehill and cause drifts in their relationships. Yesterday we had a conversation about where I was at but he said he couldn't go back to the hotel because they kicked him out for smoking in the room. He stopped smoking while I was pregnant but he said I was stressing him out. So he had to stay at the apartment while I was OTP to one of my girls in the bedroom. He came in and took the phone off me and told me to come and eat. While we was eating he said that he understood what I said and that things need to change for us to move forward. He then proceeded to list all the things I needed to do to make things better. His tone the whole conversation was just making me uneasy. I texted my dad saying that he was making me uncomfortable when he wasn't looking. I went to check on the baby and when I came back I saw him take my keys out my purse but didn't say anything. He took my silence as agreement to everything he said and went to bed, instead of the couch like we had agreed. Like everything was normal I stayed in the living room and my dad, bless him, drove 6 hours to come and get us. My dad got to the apartment around 5 this morning while my fiancé was still sleeping and we left. Me and my son are at my parents' house now. My fiancé's been blowing up my phone since this morning. I sent a text to him as we were driving off saying he wasn't respecting the fact that I needed space and time to just figure everything out. So he could stay in the apartment and I'll stay at my parents'. We haven't officially broken up or called the wedding off. My parents who've paid for it have said that they don't care if I want to call it off but I feel bad. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who replied to my original post and private messaged me. I didn't think people would care about me. I feel like every option I have is bad. The thought of being a single mom is scary. If my fiancé's behavior gets worse that would be shit. If we cancel the wedding and cost my parents thousands of dollars I'll feel guilty, and if we break up altogether we just got a house together, we're both on the mortgage, our joint accounts, and I've been with him since I was 19. Being without him for good is also scary. Some of comments. Commenter 1, this guy is bad news. Got you pregnant, laid down the law, and hid your car keys. Don't feel bad about your parents being out of money for what they have spent. From what you told us about his latest stunt and your friend's commentary about him, trust us, they are pleased as punch that he finally revealed himself to you in terms that you can't ignore. I'm guessing they have been biting their tongues but despite their angst at your choice, chose to respect it and support it. Reply. They said that they didn't like how we was getting so serious too fast or how he moved into my apartment but then I got pregnant so they didn't want to seem unsupportive. Commenter 2, OP, listen to this happy face carrot. Condoms kept breaking. That so rarely happens that it happening more than once is super sus. He freaked out over you getting an IUD, a birth control method completely out of his control because he can break condoms and steal replace mess with your pills, but there's nothing he can do about an IUD. He refused to wear condoms your first month on the pill, even though you asked him to. Yes, you agreed to go ahead without, but on that score alone I'd leave. He couldn't hold out for 1 month. You got pregnant during that first month. When you confronted him about his joke and joked back, he lost his shit and scared you. He disrespected your boundary. He couldn't smoke outside. That was the only hotel in the entire region. He has no friends whose couches he can sleep on. Just know, he took your phone away. Why did you let him? He made it your responsibility to fix the relationship. His tone scared you. He stole your keys. He disrespected another boundary, sleeping in the bed. How many red flags do you need? Do not go back to him. That's why he got you pregnant in the first place, so you wouldn't leave him. Leave him. Reply. He took my phone to get me off the call. I didn't expect him to literally come and take it out my hand. He gave it back when I came out the room. He just did it to get my attention. As a separate comment, I left with none of my stuff, only essentials for my son. I will have to go back but my dad said he and my brother will go today. Commenter, next day. Hey OP. If you feel guilty about your parents having paid for stuff, cancel what you can and have a good riddance party with your friends and family with what you can't cancel. Reply. My mom's been canceling things from this morning. The wedding's off. Commenter, your head is probably spinning from everything, so sorry you're going through this. What's happening to you is called betrayal trauma. it's easy for women to start to tune out our instincts, but this is a lesson on how real your instincts are. Thank God you realized before you married him. He let the mask slip off too much, but from an outsider's perspective it's clear this was just the start. It takes the average woman 7 times to leave an abusive relationship because we get sucked back in by promises and small sample data of changes. Be strong, get a therapist. Lean on your community and heal. If you go back he can start displaying more desperate behavior like what you saw with the keys, and it can get dangerous very fast. He saw you as his life raft and now his life has capsized. Reply. Heavy on the lean on my community. I had the first honest and open conversation with my mom for the first time in a long time and I feel so different and so much better. My head was a mess and Reddit probably wasn't the best place to talk about it, but it's anonymous and it felt good to get it out. New update post. Read my previous posts for context. I, 23F, made a post on here about my ex-fiancé, 26M, and a joke he made at Thanksgiving. Things escalated and I decided to take our 7-month-old and leave. We've been at my parents since then. I didn't go about it the right way, leaving without telling him, and the next morning understandable he was confused when we weren't at home initially. I went no contact, and because he couldn't reach me he called the police saying that he thought I was having some type of breakdown and have PPD and that he was afraid for me and our son's safety. The police alerted my parents that I'd been reported missing and asked if they'd seen or heard from me. And we explained that I left because I felt uncomfortable in the apartment with him, so I started speaking to him again. I told him why I left but apologized for leaving the way I did, and he also apologized for everything that's gone down. He said he'd bought stuff for me and the baby for Christmas already and wanted to give it to us, so asked if he could come to my parents' house at Christmas. It was our son's first Christmas despite what's going on between us. He's still his dad and I didn't want to make him miss out. I explained all this to my parents who agreed to let him come, and we had a good day. He brought the stuff like he said and he was respectful and didn't drink. It felt like how it used to. He came back the next day because he left his wallet, but we talked for a while. He promised to stop drinking because that was what caused everything, him getting drunk and saying something stupid without thinking, and he was alright with us postponing the wedding, saying he just missed his family. He asked if we'd come back with him, but I said I wanted to stay here. He said he understood. We didn't speak for a few days and he sent a care package with things he knew I liked, and he wrote in the letter that since all my stuff was still at the apartment he wanted me to have things that reminded me of home. I called him to say thank you and we've FaceTimed so he could see the baby. I went out on night with some friends from high school, and the day after he texted me, asking if I got home alright and if I was hungover. I said I was fine, but then I realized I didn't tell him I was going out. So I asked how he knew, and he said he saw me on an Instagram story and knew it was my first time drinking since giving birth. He said he didn't go out and could have watched our son, but I didn't plan to go out originally. I was gonna stay home, but my mom encouraged me to go. And by the time I decided I was going it was too short notice. He wouldn't have been able to come in time, since it's a 6-hour maybe longer drive depending on traffic, but I could have at least let him know, I guess. My dad and brother wanted to drive back to the apartment to get my stuff, so I asked him when would be a good time for them to go, and he said that I didn't need to move out and that even though he thinks I'm blowing everything out of proportion he would wait for me to get over it so we could be a family again because he needs us, and that he'd stay in a hotel and I should move back. And the wedding's been cancelled. My parents lost most of the deposits, which I'm gonna pay them back, and everyone I could tell that the wedding's been cancelled. I've told I'm not sure if he's done the same. At Christmas my SIL was complaining about the new iOS update and how annoying it was, and I hadn't updated my phone yet, so I decided to do it then and left my phone on charge. When I had remembered and went to check on my phone it had reset, and my ex said that his one did the same thing. This account was a burner and I didn't remember the details initially when I reinstalled Reddit, but I managed to get back into it. My parents said I can stay as long as I need, but I feel like a burden. They were supposed to go away in a week, but they've cancelled it and they lost all that money on the wedding, so I need to figure myself out soon. A part of me thinks I'm being stupid throwing away my family over what started as a drunk joke, but it's become more than that and I'm just lost ATM. But yeah, that's where I'm at. But I want to thank y'all. I've had a lot of messages and people checking on me. I know some are probably disappointed that I haven't cut him off completely, but it's not that simple, especially with a baby, and these last few weeks he's gone back to how he used to be, and I'm realizing that I've probably caused a lot of this by overthinking the joke. Some comments. I don't care whose Instagram he saw me on. To be honest, I haven't been able to get into my account since Christmas. It's so old I don't remember the login details. To a downvoted commenter. I get I should have told him I was going to my parents, but I've already apologized for that. I'm not keeping our son from him. Every time he's asked to see the baby he came at Christmas. He didn't ask to see him on Nye. Commenter. If you are thinking of going back, make sure there is an agreement that your career and job is not affected by having children. Also, in your last update you informed him where you were going, so how could he be confused? Reply. My dad asked him this at Christmas, but he said he just panicked and called the police as soon as he woke up and realized we was gone without checking his messages. Stories number 6. My entitled mom wants me to pay my creep stepbrother's student debt. I'm 29F and has a stepbrother, Chris, 42M. I was born in US, but after her biological father's death when she was 1, she and her mother moved back to their native country, Colombia, when OOP's mother and Chris's father remarried. They went back to US and have been there since then. I was 4 and Chris was 17. Chris was not a big fan of me. Lots of constant bullying towards Chris. Was the golden child because my mother wanted a son instead of a daughter. At 16, I moved in with her older half-brother, Sam, 48M, who was her deceased father's first child with his first wife. I'm now a nurse practitioner. Things got bad when my mother and Chris tried to fight with her for her money because Chris deserved it. Update 1. I took advice from Reddit to freeze her credit so nothing happens to it. She also decided on going ahead with pressing charges along with having a civil lawsuit against her mother for 2 years of child support she owes my mother and 2 aunties. Has been creating lots of false accusations against OOP for various crimes that never happened. OOP's biological paternal side has stepped in and supported OOP against her mother, calling her out for making false claims. Update 2. For OOP's whole life, her mother complained about her being a girl, making jokes and lies about OOP so no one else would pay attention to her. The mother never protected OOP for a long time. Even after the mother married Chris' father, both parents let Chris bully OOP, stealing her food, and locking her in dark places. The mother said OOP is at fault because she tempted her poor sweet boy. At 16, OOP was saved by her older half-brother and his wife. They took her in, helped her get through college with the help from her biological father's family. OOP has a great job now as a nurse practitioner and looking into buying her own home when her mother found out about her job and demanded her handing over her earnings to Chris to pay off his student loans because she is her mother and Chris deserves it. My entitled mom steals my inheritance. Now she probably is going to prison. I has legal fights going on against her mother and stepbrother. As she got older, she learned more about her biological father who passed when she was only a year old. OOP talks about her father who has made legal decisions on his assets that she would get when she turned 18. I learned she was her father's child with her mother as his affair partner turned wife, too. Her mother and Chris have been harassing OOP since then, hoping she would cave in and give her money to them. OOP met with her late father's lawyer and they discovered that her mother wasn't the executor of her assets. Meant the mother is in big trouble with help from the lawyer. OOP is working on getting back of what she could get from her mother. My entitled mother is begging me to reconcile. I shares her personal venting about her mother and stepbrother who has been harassing her for her money because Chris is the golden child. OOP's half-brother has been encouraging her to have some fun with her girlfriends to get her mind off the inheritance situation with her mother and Chris. She finds herself facing her mother at the bar when she walked in. Her mother was begging for reconciliation with Chris, but OOP wasn't having it. Other people at the bar were calling OOP an asshole because they overheard the conversations about her mother asking to reconcile. The mother left after OOP's friend called Sam to rescue her at the bar. Entitled mom wants me to marry my abusive stepbrother. I got accosted at her job when her mother decided to stop by, hoping to harass her some more and getting her money to pay for Chris's student loans. OOP knew it was her mother right away because of her unique first name. OOP's boss stepped in and asked her mother to leave because OOP's life was likely to be in danger of her presence. The mother demanded to be seen by OOP, but OOP's boss denied the request. OOP's mother then threw a letter at her. OOP shared some significant details about the letter from her mother. Chris attacked OOP at a point where she had medical complications afterwards and is not able to conceive. Her mother and Chris knew about this. The letter was sent to OOP's lawyer to create a request for RO. OOP later stated Chris got arrested for kidnapping his cousin's 2-year-old daughter. New updates. My entitled mom attacks me and demands that I pay for my abuser's bail. My mother continues to be the bane of my existence. It's been a bit about a month since I, 29F, last dealt with her and I'm once again facing my mom's delusions. The short background is my mother prefers my sexual abuser stepbrother Chris. He's 43 now. He abused me since I was a child, normal abuse first that evolved into sexual abuse as I became a preteen and then a teen after the worst happened. My paternal half-brother Sam took me in when I was 16 and raised me. It's also come to light that my mother was stealing from a trust my father had set for me with fake receipts and she had also been claiming me in her taxes, which is ridiculous since I do my own taxes as an independent. All in all, my mother is now being investigated for tax fraud. Chris is currently in jail for kidnapping his cousin's baby, a 2-year-old girl. Now to the newest stupidity that has come from my mother. She is now harassing me to pay Chris bail to begin with. I can't believe they would let him post bail at all after kidnapping a baby. The bail is set at $25,000. That seems like a lot, but in all honesty I find it absolutely disturbing that's all they are charging. I've been trying to get an RO on both Chris and my mother. Chris, that one is more likely coming my mother. Despite all her harassment, no one, neither cops nor lawyers, believe her to be a danger to me, so I still have to deal with my mother trying to talk to me at the parking lot of the clinic I work in. I'm a nurse practitioner. Or at home constantly banging on the door. Her sisters, who I met as an adult and didn't know they even existed to begin with, have also joined in this. Sam and his wife say that it's okay and not to worry, but I know this is taking a toll on them. I'm also worried about their kids, they have 2 boys, being exposed to all the crazy. So despite Sam's insistence that everything is okay, I'd move temporarily to a hotel until I could find a cheap apartment to rent. Some people suggested becoming a traveling nurse, and while I'm considering it, I don't want to be far from Sam and his family, as they are my support system. The issue is my mother somehow tracked me to the first hotel I was in and found out my room number. She banged on the door while I was getting ready for work. When I opened the door to tell her to go away, she slapped me and began to hit and scratch at me, yelling it was my fault that her sweet boy was taken by the cops and that I should be the one paying his bail. My mom isn't that strong, but I was stunned at the sudden attack. By sheer luck, housekeeping was doing their rounds when this happened, and they got security to restrain my mother. Security called the cops. They took my mom away, but apparently let her go with just a warning. When I recovered enough, I ended my stay and booked into another hotel. I did go to work, mostly so I could get my injuries looked after. My boss heard this as she was helping me get through a panic attack and cleaning some scratches I had on my neck. After giving her full details, she told me she had a rental for extra income. At the moment she has it rented for some college students, but when the semester ends, she's going to close it as a student rental and offered it to me. It's a small house with a yard that permits pets, so I can bring my cat with me. She also wants me to start carpooling with one of my co-workers, a male nurse that looks intimidating but is the sweetest teddy bear you can imagine. I went to the cops to report my mother, and again, despite the pictures of my injuries, this was all brushed as a domestic affair since my mother is elderly and they don't think she's a real danger. I even got lectured about maybe needing family therapy. My lawyer just told me to take a deep breath and do the paper trail. He told me at the end of all this, we'll have the last laugh, so here's hoping. As to how my mother found my room number, the girl at the front desk gave it to her when my mom made a scene about how I was suicidal and she was worried I would kill myself after my fiancé was taken by the cops on fake charges. Yeah, I think it's bullshit, and my lawyer is already speaking to the hotel's management for that. My dear mother has also gone back to social media to claim I attacked her when she went to check on me after Sam kicked me out again. It's turned into a fight between my dad's family and her family. I posted pictures of my injuries and wrote my account of what happened. I'm just so tired at the moment. This is affecting my work, and while my boss is amazing and supportive, I can't imagine this is good for me. I miss Sam and his family. I miss my own bed. I miss my peace. I never wanted to deal with my mother or Chris after I left their roof. Small update. For people that call out for me to check my car for air tags, you called it. There was an air tag hidden in the undercarriage. No idea how it was put in. It was covered in a ton of tape, making it even harder to see since it matched the color. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Is she following you? How did she know which hotel? I would check your car for air tags. Hopefully she will end up in jail for the fraud. BTW. Why did Chris kidnap a baby? He wasn't interested in sexually abusing her, was he? I'm glad you have all this support. Good luck. Reply. I can't say I know the why. I'm not in speaking terms with that side of the family since they are my step-family. My entitled mom is finally arrested, October 8, 2024, 1 month later. Hey everyone, I'm finally happy to inform that my mother was arrested last night for tax fraud and grand larceny against my inheritance. It's been about 6 months of waiting for this to happen, but finally, to do the mandatory TLDR, my mother stole from a trust fund my biological dad left for me to pay things for my stepbrother, Chris. He was my abuser, both physically and sexually. Growing up now both of them are arrested. Chris was arrested for kidnapping his cousin's baby. It's been months of harassment, abuse and fear, but I have to admit right now I feel amazing. I might have to testify at some point, but that's fine. I'm ready to be free of both of them. As many have suggested, someone even did a great bullet point list recently that was filled with good tips. I'm in the process of getting a temp RO and also getting a new social security number. I'm also back at home with my half-brother and his family. Turns out one of his neighbors is selling his house, so fingers crossed I get it. I'm just so relieved. It's been half a year of pain and turmoil. I'm not lowering my guard, but at least a couple of weeks of peace will be nice. My mother did call me twice from jail. First call went to voice message where she demanded I drop the charges, which I can't. That's all the IRS. The second I did answer and she was pretty much begging me not to abandon her. It felt good to just say bye and end the call. Good luck to whoever her lawyer ends up being. Her flying monkey, my aunts I just met recently, have been annoying me with messages and emails, but I can live with blocking them. They are complete strangers, so not as emotionally draining. Again, as cliche as it sounds, I cannot thank enough everyone's advice and support. If I have any updates, I'll post them, but for now I'm gonna go back to lurking in the shadows. Relevant comments. Can I recoup any of the funds that were stolen? It's very unlikely. My mother has very little leftover assets, so even if I was to sue her for what she has, it wouldn't be anywhere near what was taken. Not to mention that will be months of legal procedures. Better just keep what I have and move on. Commenter 1. File another report with the police. Calling you and demanding you drop the charges is witness tampering, intimidation. Reply. My lawyer is on it. We have a recording, so it should be pretty straightforward. Abuser stepbrother and entitled mom update. Hey everyone, been a few months and I had some people asking for updates, so just wanted to confirm I'm alive and healthy. Forgive me if I don't do a recap, but seriously, I've done too many. To begin down the list of updates, my mom has finally been arrested. Turns out she never became a citizen, just a resident. So she might be facing deportation rather than jail. Either way works for me. I heard from her last a bit before Christmas through some friends of her, now ex-friends, who came to ask me why I had accused my mother of tax fraud. They were under the impression my mom sent me monthly allowances because I was a failed college student. Took 10 minutes to correct the story. Turns out keeping your diploma on the wall corrects misunderstandings about who was the leech fast. My mom's sisters have been a nightmare in social media, to be honest, blaming me for everything, saying it's my fault. The family's name has been dragged through the mud. To be honest, I am planning to change my name to remove my mother's surname. I made sure to post that only made things worse. They even had a Catholic priest call me because he was worried I was not honoring my mother like a good Christian should. Imagine his face when I told him I decided to convert to Buddhism, a full-on lie. I'm happily agnostic, nothing against him. I'm sure my aunts fed him some BS story. I decided to visit Chris in jail also. This was more for my satisfaction than anything. Alas, foo, if you want to see it that way, he never got the money to post bail, so he's sitting in jail until trial, sometime in January if I remember right. Gotta love court backlogs. When he saw me, he called me Vita and tried to be lovey-dovey. I was a complete bitch and brought in my boyfriend. Remember my coworker who was a big and scary teddy bear? Things happened and we got together. I told Chris this was the last time we would speak. I loudly called him out for being a bastard and a pedo. I told him he was a monster for kidnapping a baby girl, and who knows what sick fantasy he had for the poor thing. I also found out the cousin he abused was younger than me. I called him out for being a mid-30s bastard touching a little 9 years old. He began crying that he was sick, but he knew my love could cure him. I told him I already had someone I loved and this was the last time I ever exchanged words with him. I just wanted him to see me in a good relationship with my life relatively put together despite the years of abuse he inflicted on me. I also swore I would make sure the cousin he abused will have a good life too. I left after that and pretty sure other inmates in the room heard. I overheard a guard swearing and calling for more guards to escort Chris. He gave me a tired look as I passed, so I did feel bad for putting extra work on the man. I have been in contact with Chris' cousin as I promised. She's about the same age I was when Chris did his worst assault on me. Thankfully in her case it didn't go as far. Her mom has been very sweet and supports us talking. I also told them if there was ever any need for support, emotional or monetary, to just give me a call. I made it clear this offer was for the family except my ex-stepfather and Chris. They've been nothing but kind to me and apologetic for not noticing the abuse. I can't blame them since we barely ever cross paths. As for the house I wanted to buy, unfortunately I didn't get it. That's okay, though since I started a new relationship, I decided to pause too many big steps. It was stressing me out and this is my first formal relationship to begin with. A small sad news is my cat of 23 years, she made it there, God bless her, passed away. She had an aggressive form of mouth cancer that just made her waste away in days. After much thought, I let her go. I couldn't see my best friend of 2 decades suffer like that. That was another reason I am glad I still live with my half-brother and his family. My nephews have been my greatest supports during this loss. And not wanting to jump the gun, but I got permission from my boyfriend to post this. I'm also now learning to take a more maternal role. My boyfriend is a single dad to the sweetest 4-year-old. Her mom sadly passed away when she was a baby, so I am the first female figure in her life as a partner to her dad. We're not jumping to being mom right off the bat. I'm her dad's friend. She has warmed up to me very fast and I've come to love spending time with her. She even made me a drawing of my cat with little angel wings, so I always know my cat is watching over me. I gotta admit I teared up at that. So yeah, life is somewhat back to normal. Good news mixed with sad news. I'm learning what it's like to be with someone that actually likes me and respects me. All in all, I'm doing much better. Stories number 7. My 19F boyfriend, 20M, eyes scare the crap out of me. I'm not sure what to do from here. Posting on my spam because my man's on Reddit. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months but have known and been friends with each other since we were 17 and 18. I mention this because it's relevant, but he has never ever been abusive or manipulative either verbally, physically, or emotionally. Never ever a hint of any of that nonsense. We're both very level-headed people, so no crazy fights with screaming or anything like that, as we view that as disrespectful. There are some disagreements and stresses we have as we're long distance and pursuing different paths in life at the moment, but we have a very healthy relationship. Now here's the main issue, and it's kind of insane sounding, but a couple of months ago we were having a civil disagreement about something, and he was glancing at me from the corner of his eye and speaking to me, and the look in his eyes genuinely scared the shit out of me. And it's not about the eye color or anything like that, it's the look. You know how you hear about the soulless eyes that serial killers have? Like, no joke, that was 100% there, and I haven't ever gotten that something is wrong, you need to run feeling before with anyone else's. It obviously wasn't anything intentional on his part and he was speaking very calmly, but I immediately stopped disagreeing and just accepted whatever he was saying because I was so unnerved. I didn't mention anything to him and just ignored it, but the next time we disagreed about something, the look was back, and again I got so genuinely frightened I just agreed with whatever he was saying. This doesn't happen every time we disagree or argue, but it happens enough to make me question whether I'm safe with him. I know a lot of people say this on this app, but he's actually an amazing partner to me and I'm so very happy with him. I'm just looking for advice on what to do next and how seriously I should consider this feeling. Stories number 8. My 22F roommate, 21F, is trying to sublease her room to someone I have a restraining order against. Please help. When I was a freshman in college, a guy named Pete, 21M, name changed, began harassing me to date him. I refused over and over again and it ended with him ripping my shirt off at a party to try to touch my breasts. I filed a police report and Pete was found guilty of assault. I have a 1,000 feet restraining order against Pete. Fast forward to this week, and my roommate Shelly needs a subletter to take over for her while she studies abroad for the summer. She didn't know she was leaving until 2 weeks ago and has been looking for someone to take over since then. She found Pete on CL and asked me if I approved. I showed her my court documents, but Shelly claims she can't find anyone else to take over and that I will have to deal. We got into a heated argument and she just left the apartment. This morning, Shelly texted me that Pete would be moving his stuff into the apartment today. I called the police, but Pete hasn't showed up yet, so they can't do anything. Shelly also says she will be staying for the remainder of the week. The lease says that she can move whoever she wants in without my permission, same goes for me, but there's still the issue of the restraining order. The landlord told me that it was between Shelly and me to figure out. We both have 1-year leases that expire in December with the same terms. TLDR. Roommate is trying to sublease our apartment to a man I have a restraining order against. She told me to deal with it. Landlord and cops haven't done anything about it. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Is Pete aware that you're the person he'll be sharing the apartment with? You might want to let him know that you'll be calling the police if he sets foot in the place. Reply. Pete is aware that I'm the roommate because Shelly posted the ad with a photo of us both without my permission. I already promised I would be calling the police, but Shelly is locked in her room and refuses to listen to me. I'm chilling by the door with 911 already pre-dialed. Commenter 2. I agree with the consensus of calling the police the moment he arrives. Has he actually signed anything, like a sublet agreement? If so, he'll probably be on the hook to pay for an apartment he can't legally step in. Also not a lawyer, but I can't imagine that attempting to enter a living arrangement with a person holding a restraining order doesn't negate the restraining order. The first question I would ask Pete if I were a cop judge is, why did you think you could live there without violating the order? Reply. Shelly claims that Pete has already paid her for all 3 months in advance and that he signed a contract with her. I told her that her contract does not override my restraining order, but she basically put her hands over her ears to drown out what I was saying. I plan on calling the cops the moment I see his car pull up, which is less than 1,000 feet. Shelly will still be here for the rest of the week, so I'm afraid this will escalate. Update. Hi everyone. Thanks for reading this update. I have added some extra details at the beginning to better explain what happened. Things took some M. Night Shyamalan twists. Details. Shelly and I were not close friends. We were simply roommates with our own separate bedrooms and a connecting kitchen/living space. I have only known her since last December when we originally signed our leases. We have hung out, but the only real connection we had is that she likes anime Japan and I am Asian. The Craigslist ad that Shelly posted didn't have a photo. It turns out that she had used a generic photo of the two of us in an ad on our college's Facebook page, but Shelly took it down before I got a chance to take a screenshot. Actual update. After I made my Reddit post, Shelly was locked in her room for 3 hours. I tried to talk to her, but she wouldn't come out of the room. She left her room to get food, and just walked past me as if I didn't exist. Everyone who I called told me that until Pete actually showed up. No crime was being committed, so I couldn't report it until then. I just sat by the door and window watching for Pete's car. This continued until early Saturday morning when Shelly woke up for her morning jog. I was still on lookout for Pete's car. I stayed up all night on the couch. Shelly tried to sneak out past me, but I woke up and blocked the door. I needed an explanation for why I was being forced to stay up all night waiting to call the police on Pete when she knew that I had a restraining order against him. Shelly's explanation was that the restraining order doesn't matter to her, that she has dealt with unreasonable people, like me before, and that she has never listened to any restraining order before now, so why should she just for me? The more I listened, the sicker I felt. Shelly basically admitted to me that she is a cunt. I told Shelly that she was a real piece of work and that I was going to maintain my watch for Pete and that I would contemplate taking legal action. She told me that whether I liked it or not, she was done looking for sub-letters and that it was my problem. I told her to get out and go for her jog, and she left and came back a bit later and locked herself in her room again. Sometime around noon, I had accidentally fallen asleep because I had been awake 36+ hours. At that point I woke up and saw Pete helping Shelly move her stuff into her car. I didn't see him in the apartment, but he was helping her in the parking lot. I immediately locked them both out and called the police. Shelly and Pete came to the door again, and when Pete saw it was locked and when he saw me watching from the window, he blew up at Shelly. He started to ask her why I was in the apartment and why Shelly didn't tell him that I was the roommate. He demanded his money back and I could hear them screaming at each other through the door. The cops showed up, handcuffed Pete and Shelly. I told them my story and Pete said he had text messages and emails to back himself up. The cops checked his phone, saw texts from Shelly saying along the lines that her roommate wouldn't care about X, Y, Z because he was a chill guy. Pete had posted his own ad looking for a male roommate. That's right. Shelly is a liar too. The cops released Pete because he had proof that he didn't know it was me. I'm okay with this because I saw the emails texts too. Shelly was charged with disorderly conduct and her mom came to get her. Sunday evening, Shelly and her mom come back to the apartment to finish packing for her study abroad. Shelly made some snide remarks about me definitely going roommate hunting to find her a subletter as I said I would. I ignored her. Shelly left for her plane this morning. You know the good thing about separate leases? I am only liable for my rent, not hers, so I'm going to sit on my butt for the rest of the summer while she gets evicted for lack of rent payment. TLDR, Pete had no clue it was me. Shelly got arrested. She thinks I'll find a subletter, but I'm going to let her get evicted. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Sounds like a crappy situation all around, but it also sounds like Pete didn't know, and now that he does, will not be back to bother you since you are on separate leases. You should hopefully not have anything to worry about legally or financially. Let Shelly deal with those issues herself. She brought them on herself. A quick question, if she does fail to pay, could you in any way get kicked out? Or are you pretty much in the clear? Either way, good luck. Your roommate is immature and deserves the consequences of whatever happens to her in this situation. Reply. Our leases explicitly say that we are only liable for our individual portion of the rent, so I'm in the clear and Pete really didn't know about me being there. That's how much of a bitch Shelly is to let a man get arrested over something so stupid. And thanks, smiley face. Commenter 2. I mean, what did she think was gonna happen? On top of the shameless assholery, Shelly sounds like she's missing a few marbles. Reply. I think that what happened was that Shelly was focused only on going abroad and not focused on her own actions. She couldn't find anyone, so as soon as she found someone she thought, problem solved, and ignored the problems until I called the police. I also had this comment. I wish she could have gotten charged with more, but she started bawling her eyes out to the police officer and he went easy on her because she looks so young. To me it's just another sign that she's an awful person because she was manipulating the cops. The lease states explicitly that I'm not liable for her rent, and even if she tries to sue me, it's my word against hers and I'm confident I would win that legal battle. Pete is staying as far away from it as he can and he apologized to me and is trying to get his deposit back from her. Stories number 9. How do I, 26F, bring up healthy portion sizes to my husband, 35M, who eats all of the food I make without offending him? This seems like a silly issue to have, but it's really starting to bother me. My 26F husband, 35M, is a big guy and I understand that as a man he has a higher metabolism and a greater need for calories than I do. However, he eats such massive portion sizes. I am struggling to keep enough food in the house to get our family through the week. I am the only one in the house who cooks for us and our child, 6M. I carry the full mental weight of planning 5 to 6 dinners a week. I always intend for there to be leftovers for lunch the next day, but because he eats so much, there never is. For example, this week I made a 9 by 13 dish of lasagna intended to serve 12. I figured as a family of 3, this meal should last us at least 2 days. I always take into account that my husband eats 2 to 3 servings a sitting. My son and I each had our single serving of lasagna, and my husband ate the remaining half of the dish. Okay, fine. He said he hadn't eaten much that day and was starving. No problem. I at least had the other half of the dish for leftovers at lunch tomorrow. The next day I went to the fridge to get leftovers for me and my son's lunch. And my husband had taken the entire second half of the lasagna to work with him to eat for lunch. Another day this week I made cornbread and chili in a similar quantity intending to have leftovers for lunch the next day. Once again my son and I each eat our single serving, and my husband eats 4 servings in a single sitting for dinner that night. Next day, he comes home for an early lunch from work, scrambles 4 eggs in a pan and devours them. Then again takes all of the leftovers out of the fridge and takes them back to work with him to eat. I don't want to seem like a bitch or that I'm fat shaming or anything like that, but I am seriously irritated that I work so hard to plan and cook good food that will last through the week, and my husband is selfishly eating it all. No matter how much extra food I make, how do I bring up this topic of conversation without hurting feelings? He can be pretty sensitive and defensive. I don't understand, even at his size, 5 feet 11 inches, 250 pounds, how he can eat so much without feeling sick to his stomach, and I would really like my son and I to have the option of leftovers at home. Because my husband forbids us to spend money eating out, and meat and cheese sandwiches get pretty boring fast. Edit for clarification. Okay, wow, this is my first time being a participant on Reddit and not simply observing, and I have to admit I am overwhelmed with the number of responses this post has gotten. I really appreciate the common sense suggestions of portioning and freezing food, or making smaller portions. Approaching the topic from a financial or health standpoint, I do not appreciate the responses accusing me of not making quality food or sides, not making enough food, and people saying my husband is a narcissist predator. I didn't think I would need to provide this context for a question like this, but to clarify, my husband is not abusive or a groomer. He is an absolutely amazing caring man who provides well for our family. Our son is from a previous relationship of mine. I became pregnant at 19 in a bad relationship with a guy a couple years older than me who cheated on me constantly and could never hold a job to support me and the baby. We separated when my son was 6 months old. I began dating husband when my son was about a year old, and while we did get married fairly quickly, I don't feel that he was being predatory or grooming in any way. He has been a loving and loyal provider to our family and treats my son as nothing other than his very own. When I was accepted into nursing school when my son was 3, he was nothing but supportive and encouraging. And when the demands of my nursing curriculum became too much to balance with my job, he told me to quit my job and he would take care of everything, a promise which he has kept. I'm in my final semester of nursing school now, and I could not have done this without my husband's love and support. Yes, I could be a better communicator. I am going to take the good advice that was given here and make smaller portions of meals and freeze half in labeled containers. And I'm going to make it known which containers are off limits and which ones are for grabs. Thanks to everyone who gave common sense answers without judgment. I don't know if I will be asking questions on Reddit again anytime soon. Stories number 10. Aita for telling a woman where she can and can't give birth. This is one of the stranger things that's ever happened to me. To set the scene, I, 26, bought the house I'm living in 2019 from this lovely older couple. I thought, as I'm sure anyone who has been in this situation might think, that the signing was gonna be the last time I ever saw them, or had anything to do with their family. I was wrong. Yesterday, I got a knock on my door. I opened it to find a young couple, probably my age, maybe a bit younger. The woman was pregnant, and looked like she was gonna pop any day. I asked who they were, and if I could help them. The woman replied that this home used to belong to her parents, and that she was born in this house. I asked again what it was that they wanted, since that didn't really tell me if they needed anything from me. She told me that her mother had also been born here, in the upstairs bedroom. For context, this is now my bedroom. She then asked if I wouldn't mind letting her bring the stuff that was needed to give birth in the same spot as she and her mother were both born in. I said no, keeping in mind that A, this isn't her or her parents' house anymore, and B, that the bedroom in question is my bedroom. Now, I thought that this was as normal as a response as was possible given the strange question, but when I was telling my friends about this afternoon, one of the girls in the friend group said that it was pretty cruel of me to tell a pregnant woman where she can and can't give birth. I didn't think that what I had said was all that strange, considering I had never met the couple before, and I don't exactly want a strange woman giving birth where I sleep, but my friend insists that I could have come to some sort of arrangement. So here I am, asking you guys. Aita Edit. So I would just like to add, my friend isn't an idiot. When we were having this conversation, we were, let's say, having a fun time with fun substances. When I asked her about it today, she genuinely thought she'd imagined the conversation. Obviously, she thinks it's a horrible idea for liability and health reasons. Aside from it being weird and for those concerned that she's getting high as a nurse, she's off for the next 2 weeks, she's flying home for the holidays, so we were having a little get-together for those of us who are leaving for home. And for those saying that I made this up, I wish I had an imagination that good. I'd start writing if I did. I couldn't have predicted or come up with something like this in 100 years. Edit 2. I got an email back from the previous owners. I managed to get their contact info from the realtor who sold the house. It turns out yes, they have a daughter. Yes, apparently she is actually pregnant, and they have cut her off for being a bit on the crazy side. So yeah, I asked for anything that might be helpful for getting any kind of protection order for my house, but the cops have said that unless she actually tries anything, there isn't anything they can do. So, I guess on Monday, I get to talk to someone in my county's court system to deal with this. Update. The apparent daughter of the previous owners of my house came to my door a little bit ago and asked if she could give birth in my bedroom. Honestly, it's as crazy as it sounds. Reading my original post won't make it make much more sense. A couple of things before I get into it. Some friends shave shown me that the post has indeed broke Reddit containment, and pointed a few things out to me, so I'm gonna set a few things. First thing, some people have assumed this was fake based and that I probably made up the scenario because they think I think it's hot. No, I don't. I think the entire scenario is creepy and off-putting. And secondly, yes, I know that 21 is pretty young to be buying a house, and made the whole thing seem fake. I live in the Midwest, which is pretty cheap to begin with. It's not a huge house, and I got a small claim after an incident at work. So I used the money from that for my future. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I say. I know some people will still assume I've made the whole thing up, or used chat to make it, but that said, if you don't think this is real, just move on with your day. I truly wish it wasn't real. Last note, there were a couple of people asking why I got the cops involved with the original incident, and I only got them involved when the original homeowners told me that the woman was a bit on the loose screw side of things. So I did that because when you are told that the person who came to your door might have been a bit unhinged, you take that step for your own peace of mind. Anyway, last week Friday, at about 1:30, I get a knock/heavy pounding at my door. I go and answer, wondering just who the hell would be visiting me in the middle of the night, when I see a familiar face at the door. It's the pregnant woman, with her husband/boyfriend/partner, I don't know what, and 2 women, who I assume are midwives. From what I gather, the woman went into labor earlier that day, and is hoping I changed my mind. I haven't, and ask them all to leave. The woman starts having either a breakdown, or a contraction or something, because she just starts screaming on my driveway. One of the other women in the group explains to me that they drove 4 hours to get here, and if I wouldn't mind letting them set up. She tells me that the woman had told them that she had arranged for the house, and that she was nearly ready to push. From what I understood, the woman had lied to her midwife about me agreeing to this, and had essentially tried to trick her into forcing me into letting this happen in my house. I tell her a firm no, and that if needed, there's a hospital only 5 minutes away from where I live, the same hospital my friend works at. For my original post, no, she wasn't be there, she was on vacation at the time, and ask them all to leave. The woman starts screaming and crying about how I'm ruining this for her. But between me closing and locking the door, her partner, and her midwives, she gets back into their van and drive off. I don't know if this was a guilt trip, or if they were delusional or what, but here's the thing about me: I am an absolute pushover. I probably would have just pretended to be asleep and not even opened the door and waited them out. But here's the thing: I had a different friend, her wife and their highly autistic child, spending the night on their way back home after the holidays. I'm cheaper than a hotel, lol. All the noise and commotion, plus the unexpected midnight visitor, severely triggered the kid, and it took nearly 2 hours to calm her back down enough to get her to sleep. She's a good kid, and means the world to my friends, so having someone else who would have been severely affected by this, I managed to find a bit of my spine, which is why I wound up opening up the door to ask them to leave. Honestly, I shouldn't have even opened the door and just called the cops first thing, but the good news is that after a couple of minutes talking to the midwife, she agreed to take the whole show elsewhere. After they all left, I did call the police on the non-emergency line, and update them on what was going on, and gave them the footage of the previous incident and the latest video I have the incident. I'm really hoping that now she's given birth, that she'll leave me alone either way. In addition to my Ring camera, I've asked my neighbor to keep an eye out, and call me if anything happens while I'm at work. I also got deadbolts to install for all of my exterior doors. I changed the locks when I bought the house, which honestly seemed to have been a good idea, but this is just to make me feel a bit better about the whole thing. Edit. Couple of things. First, I was 21 when I originally bought the house in 2019, and between how cheap houses can be in the Midwest and a liability settlement, I was able to buy the home I live in now. Second, I don't really want to post the video, mostly because if this goes any farther, I want to ensure that me posting it doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. More on this later. Thirdly, because the comments are worse than the assumptions, I'm deleting anything involving my orientation. And lastly, this post is probably going to vanish. I got a phone call from what sounded like a lawyer, claiming that the woman intends to sue, so after work, I'll be talking with a lawyer, and if he says I should take this down, I will be. Stories number 11. Aita for having second thoughts about marrying my fiancé after a drunk comment. Not sure why I'm even here. Guess I'm still trying to process what my 27M fiancé drunkenly admitted to me, 30F, last night. For context, my fiancé, who I'll refer to as Alex, and I have been together for just under 2 years and got engaged in Dec. Everything has been a blast since the day we met, and we keep surprising each other with just how awesome of a couple we can be. Last night, we had a special date night for New Year's planned where we dressed up like bowlers from the 1970s and bowled our asses off for a few frames until we finally decided on a winner. During the 5 games, we ended up drinking 2 of those beer towers, about 7 beers each altogether. He's not a big drinker, so he was a little more than tipsy when we decided to call it a night and head home. We live really close by, so we walked to and from the bowling alley since we figured we were going to be drinking on that 15-minute walk home. He was doing the usual mushy, "I love you," and other cute little things he tells me while giggling. Things took a bit of a turn when he started talking about how much he enjoys our sex. He's always told me that we have amazing sex and that he can't get enough, but in his drunken state, he told me something different. "You're the third best that I've ever had." I stopped walking for a second and just stared at him in disbelief. Alex just looks at me, giggles again, and kisses me, thinking he was just saying that on purpose to agitate me a bit like he does, but not really mean it. I laugh it off, and we keep walking. Once we get home and sit on our front porch, he brings it back up. "I really do mean it though, babe, you're amazing, but I have had better before you." I was as confused as I was mad, embarrassed, and offended all at the same time. I asked him what the hell he was saying to me and if he was being serious. He started crying and told me that he had a one-night stand before he met me with some woman that was like a sex goddess. He also mentioned a past fling with a guy when they were both teenagers, and experimenting with drugs. Both of these confessions took me completely off guard because he never in our time together mentioned anything about being bi-curious or anything like that, let alone promiscuous sex. My commitment to Alex is starting to change now though, and I haven't been able to look at him all day and avoided him. I'm having second thoughts about following through with a marriage if he'll always think of me as a third-place prize. Even if I did think there was something about Alex that wasn't as good as a past relationship, I wouldn't openly tell him that I thought he wasn't as hot, handsome, has a small dick, etc. That just seems kind of mean and feels a little malicious or petty. Am I the asshole for reconsidering the engagement? Ada has no consensus bot. I was NTA. Top comments. Commenter 1, NTA. saying it once was a slip, twice was deliberate. Commenter 2, you're not the asshole for having second thoughts. What he said was hurtful and unnecessary. Even if he was drunk, it's okay to take time to process this and decide if you can move past it together. Commenter 3, sounds more like he wanted to unleash the truth, but didn't want the repercussions of doing it while sober. Now he can say he was just drunk. Commenter 4, I mean, he clearly thought a lot about this to make this list go into even more detail about the women. And to knowingly hurt your partner, to what end exactly? Like that screams I don't like you anymore, doesn't it? Laughing like a sociopath while doubling down who would want to marry this person. Update. So, Alex tried to apologize the morning after we went out. He pretended everything was okay and was as sweet with me as usual. But I was short with him and ignored his texts all day leaving for work. When we both got home in the evening, I still couldn't even look at him, and so he asked me what was wrong, and I told him apparently he hardly remembers a thing after we finished bowling. He recalls walking home and saying some things he felt embarrassed about and then sitting outside and cuddling with me on the porch. I told him exactly what I remember him saying and he looked mortified. He apologized profusely and told me I'm the only person he slept with and ever cared this much about, but I told him he'd humiliated me and made me feel like I was the problem and needed some time apart, so he volunteered to go stay with his brother to give me some space. He's since spent the rest of the evening and today trying to make it right, leaving voicemails and texting that he really didn't mean to hurt me and that he was drunk and stupid. He kept reiterating that I'm the best thing that's happened to him and the sex he had before was meaningless and that, you're my number one as far as anyone I've slept with that matters. It just made me madder, like he's now lying to save face and trying to manipulate me into feeling like I'm overreacting after making me feel like a lesser partner in bed. I finally told him to stop and told him I didn't believe a word he said anymore and that even if he's being sincere, nothing he says will undo the fact that deep down he'll always think of me as a consolation prize to some sex goddess and his male buddy. I'm honestly also second guessing if he even likes women and am not ready to deal with being with someone who's questioning their sexuality. He started crying, again, and said he just wanted to open up to me since we've never had the conversation about previous partners, and in his drunk state he thought we were at that point where we could have honest conversations, but regrets the timing and letting it slip. While drunk he said he'd move out and leave me alone but hopes I won't share what he told me with family and mutual friends, which I agreed to. I don't feel bad about ending things. He clearly didn't think before speaking, and now he's just trying to patch it up and minimize it as mistake and attempt at an honest conversation, when I know he's just trying to lower my self-esteem and make me feel like I need to turn into a sex goddess in bed or be more like a man. I've realized my self-worth and I'm no one's bronze medal. I appreciate all of the comments and kind words on the last post helping me realize this. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I cannot believe this guy tried to twist this into his being honest and opening up to her. This reads like these weird posts where men say that you should never open up to a woman because she'll pull away if she thinks you're vulnerable. Also interesting that initially he had no recollection of what he'd said and then changed to his wanting to be open and honest. Commenter 2, wait until OP comes back with an update saying that he is spreading terrible lies about her when explaining to people why they broke up. Reply, I was worried about this, but fortunately so far it sounds like he's just told mutual friends that he made a huge mistake while drunk. One of them reached out to me and thinks he cheated and told me I deserve better, so I'm just not gonna deny it and leave it at that at this point. Commenter 2, look, there are a few things going on here. Alex drunkenly said something on purpose to agitate me a bit like he does. He has a track record of riling you up, I'm assuming both drunk and sober. Not great. He chose to use his real, true, honest opinion of your prowess to do so. Not great. He revealed he's bisexual. We're well past bi-curious. If he's ranked this guy at number 2 all that time, you don't have to worry about dealing with him questioning his sexuality. He put a woman at number 1 and a guy at number 2, so end of story. Bisexual. He's obviously been avoiding telling you for a long time, and he only did it while he was plastered, so it's pretty likely he's been afraid to tell you. And if you have a problem with dating/marrying a bisexual person, well, there's a word for that, and he was right to be afraid. Assuming you're so is instantly going to cheat/turn out to be gay/dump you for a person of another gender on the big reveal is prime biphobia, and a very common experience for bi people, especially men, so there's every chance you're not the first. So in short, you've got a couple of issues on 1 and 2, a guy who likes to rile you up for fun, and was willing to put you down to do so, but on 3, you're kind of the asshole. And remember, there's every chance he used this whole "your third best" routine as a very roundabout, stupid, awkward way of bringing up his sexuality, and you could probably find out if you straight up ask him why he never told you sooner. If you're willing to lose an awesome relationship because you're not willing to be with someone bisexual, that's your loss. Reply, he told me he's never been attracted to men and that one experience as a teenager was his only time being sexual with a man. And he thinks the reason it came out while drinking is that he rarely gets drunk or does drugs these days, and his state that night made him remember how it was a surprisingly good experience and made him want to experiment with prostate stimulation more. I don't know if I believe him, but even if it's true, it kinda gave me the ick to think about him liking that type of stuff. Did I give the ring back to her ex and move on? Reply, He told me to keep the ring and hoped we could at least stay amicable long term. Stories number 12. Am I wrong for being upset my GF of 8 years now wants sex? My GF and I have been together for 8 years, and we've never had sex. My GF has had some issues regarding sex. She's gone to a therapist, and she realized she may never want sex. I knew all of this beforehand, and I was willing to stay sexless, as she's a wonderful person. I've never pressured her for sex, and never expected it. It was hard for me at times, though also, non-monogamy was never an option. Fast forward a few years, and my libido is completely gone. I don't do any sexual, I still hug and kiss my GF though. I don't even masturbate or watch porn anymore. Even if a sex scene comes up on a movie or TV, it does nothing for me. Any sex drive I ever has is gone. My GF recently tried to grab my crotch, and I pushed her away. I asked what is she doing, and she said she wants to try and start being sexual with me. We had a long talk about why she feels this way, and she says she can't really explain it. I told her I don't want to have sex, and she was disappointed. Things have gotten more tense between us, and the other day we has a fight. She says that I'm just doing this to punish her because she wouldn't have sex with me before. She says she doesn't believe me when I say my libido is gone. I'm just really frustrated with her now, because I was willing to give up sex to be with her and I never made her feel bad about it, and now she's upset with me. Am I wrong in this? Comments. Commenters 1. If this is real, your sexual development and boundaries are just as important as hers. Consider having a conversation when you're both in a calm headspace. Express your need for patience and communication. It's interesting that your devotion to her caused/allowed you to shut down your sex drive. I would consider having a session with her therapist independently, or some other counselor about this. Reply. It's hard to explain how I did it, but anytime I felt horny, I just did things like hitting myself or telling myself to stop several times. I did this because otherwise, I'd end up sexually frustrated. Commenters 2. I don't love hearing that for you op. You deserve better, mainly a supportive partner who's willing to communicate and prioritize your safety and satisfaction as well. Takes two people discussing hard stuff and giving each other grace and all that. This is your story too. Take care of yourself op. What you've been through feels a bit traumatic to talk to someone qualified, whether it's a private counselor, or better help or something. It's worth the time. Commenters 3. You broke your brain dude. Commenters 4. She says she doesn't believe me when I say my libido is gone. What does she have to say about you being understanding of her issues regarding sex for the last 7 years? Sounds like main character syndrome. Man, but GL. Reply. She said it's different, because she had some trauma regarding sex, and that I've never been sexually assaulted. True. Commenters 5. Just because you've never been SA doesn't mean you can't eschew sex. But do you want to rediscover your libido? Or are you just wanting to stay sexless? Reply. I don't know, it's been so long that I just got used to it. Update. 4 days later. We had a talk. I explained to her what I did to get rid of my libido. Basically I hit myself and told myself no when I got horny. She didn't know this. I never told her because I didn't want her to feel bad for not having sex with me. I didn't want to tell her, but she insisted on knowing why I don't have a libido anymore. She started crying when I told her. She said she was sorry she made me go through that. I told her it's not her fault, and that it was my choice. We just held each other for a while after that. We decided that we'd go to couples therapy, and when I'm ready, going to see a sex therapist. She said she's sorry for how she's been acting, and that she's willing to be patient with me. I asked her what happens if I never get my libido back. She said she doesn't know, but she said she will be patient with me. So yeah, I'll try to get my libido back. I don't feel comfortable discussing now, but something I want to mention during therapy is this pressure I'm getting from my GF. Like, maybe I'm overthinking, but I guess it feels like she's waiting for me to have sex. But when I decided to be with her, I was more of the mind, I may never have sex again. I wasn't waiting for my GF to get better so we could have sex. I accept the fact that I could go sexless for the rest of my life. I guess this is a discussion for later. Edit. I think a lot of people are assuming I beat the shit out of myself. No, I didn't punch myself at full force. I slapped my thigh or my hand, or pinched myself whenever I got horny or tried to look at porn. I did not punch my dick or balls. Comments. Commenters 1. You asked her what happens if you never get your libido back and she says she doesn't know. Dude, you were willing to go your whole life without sex for this woman, but she's not sure about you. Commenters 2. Damn, good luck. I hope you come really hard one day. Update. 7 months later. It's been a long time since I posted, and things have changed a lot in the past few months. We did find a therapist for us, and one for myself. It was hard to open up. I felt like I wasn't allowed to be frustrated a good portion of the time. I did manage to open up to my GF. Honestly, it was a pretty arduous journey for us, but we are in a better place now. My GF recognized that she was wrong for pressuring me into sex and grabbing me out of nowhere. I recognized I was wrong for my self-therapy when it came to killing my libido. We took small steps towards having sex eventually. We finally did. The first time we tried was a mess. Eventually though, it started to feel natural. We'll still go to therapy, but we are both in a much better place now, and we are having sex pretty consistently. I honestly didn't realize how much I missed it. Comments. Commenters 1. Well, this was the best case scenario. Commenters 2. Honestly, this update is so refreshing to read. It's great to see a couple willing to work through tough issues together rather than just giving up. The fact that both of you took accountability, found therapy, and took small steps toward intimacy is really inspiring. Relationships are hard work, but it sounds like you're both stronger because of it. Wishing you both continued growth and happiness. Commenters 3. I'm glad you're doing better, and I truly hope that this is a healthier relationship than it sounded like in your previous posts. Stories number 13. Aita for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Am I the asshole for telling off my sister and her baby daddy's best friend when they both tired to get me to go on a date with him? So I, F22, am so tired of my sister, F27, have a baby daddy who has a best friend. He's in the so-called rap game but in reality has no money, no job, no nothing. My sister have been saying I have nothing better to do than go on a date with him. He's not even my type. The last straw I had was when she told him without even asking me that I said yes to go on a date with him, so he was going to meet me at the restaurant and I never showed up and he got upset. They both came to me the next day while I was at work and started to go off and say how I'm selfish for not giving him a chance, and he's now saying I'm a hoe and how I think I'm better than him. So I went off on my sister and him. And I told my sister that I am done and that she had no right to try to force me to go on a date with a guy I had no interest in. In the first place, I then went off on him saying at least I have a job. You're a deadbeat baby daddy who does nothing for your own kids and who's in his late 30s wanting to go out with a 22-year-old woman. My manager came over and told them both to leave and to leave me alone. Now some of our mutual friends have taken her side and said I should have just gone on one date with him, and his baby mama texted me and told me she supports me and literally told me I made the right choice. So am I the asshole for telling off my sister for trying to set me up on a date with a man that I have no interest in dating anyways? Or did I take it too far? I have a type of guy I normally go for. I like guys who are athletic, guys who are loyal and who won't hurt me in any way, and he's neither of those things. If my boyfriend isn't athletic, it's not a big deal to me though. Aita has no consensus bot. I was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA, no judgment to your sister, but it sounds like you have goals and plans that don't match up to what your sister did, and I think that your sister wants to feel better about her choices by making sure that you follow in her footsteps. I think it's crazy that he tried to call you a hoe because you didn't want to go out with him, and I would encourage you not to settle. There's nothing wrong with wanting a partner who fits your lifestyle. Reply. I do have goals. I want to become a lawyer in New York, and my sister can't accept that since most of my family has a criminal record. They don't want me to become successful putting bad PPL away. I also want to be married and have kids by 35 at the latest. Commenter 2. NTA, whole thing should have been done the first time you said no. Everything after that was just escalating levels of disrespect. Original post. So I, F22, have an older sister, F28, she has 4 kids and she loves being a mom and wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and I encourage her to do whatever she wants. She herself understands that I have no desire to be a mom right now, if not ever. I have 2 other older sisters who are like me who doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mother. This is important. In the story, her boyfriend is mad at me, M27, cause he asked me when I'm going to settle down and that he can introduce me to his friend, M25, who wants a stay-at-home wife. I told him no, that I don't want to date anyone this year, and he got mad at me for some reason and asked me why. So I told him my ex-boyfriend left me with trust issues. My ex cheated on me. For 6 months into a 3-year relationship, he told me we broke up in 2023 and I should start getting back out there, and I told him it's not his business and he dropped it. But 2 days ago he asked me if I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, and I told him no, that I don't, and I'm not even sure if I want kids, let alone to be married. He got defensive since his mom was a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him I don't see anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but that I don't personally want to depend on a man for anything, and he once again got defensive and said not all men are the same. I told him he was correct, but again not all women want the same thing. He said my sister wants to be a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him congratulations on finding that with my sister, but that I once again don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. He got mad cause he overheard my conversation about me getting an IUD as well and told me I'm ruining God's plan to make me a mom one day, and I told him whether I want kids or not is not his business. He got mad at me and told me to get out of his home, so I did. My older sister is asking me to apologize to him and to not get an IUD since if I get pregnant that it's God's plan, and she also told me I should reconsider being a stay-at-home mom/wife. I told her not everyone has that dream, and she accused me of not respecting stay-at-home mothers' wives, which is nothing but lies. My 2 other older sisters are on my side and said my sister's boyfriend shouldn't be too concerned with how I live my life, and that if I don't want to depend on anyone for the rest of my life, that's my choice. He also said I'm going to hell for being bisexual, so I screamed that I guess his girlfriend, my sister, is also going to hell cause she's bisexual herself, which he already knows about. Now their friends are calling me an asshole, saying that he only cares about what I do with my body since it's God's body and I should respect it and become a mom soon. So am I the asshole for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home wife mom? TDL, My sister's boyfriend is upset I don't want to depend on a man and be a stay-at-home mom and is also mad I'm thinking about getting a IUD in a few weeks, and that I shouldn't mess with my body since it's God's body not mine, so I told him to mind his business. Edit: to clarify, I did put this in some comments, but 3 out of her 4 kids aren't even his. My sister has a 7, 4, 3, and soon to be newborn. Edit 2. I get asked this question a lot about why I was discussing getting an IUD to my sister's boyfriend. I wasn't discussing it to him, me and my 3 sisters were all discussing it at his house, but he wasn't there. He walked in though when I said I was thinking of getting a IUD, and that's when he butted into the conversation, and as soon as he said God's body not my body, me and my 2 other sisters started talking to him about it and he raised his voice, so I raised mine and we eventually left since I don't like conflict at all. Aita has no consensus bot, I was NTA. Relevant comments. Did I ask her sister why she wanted to be with a man? Reply. Thank you. I asked her why she wants me to be with him and she said she wants me to settle down and have kids. I'm only 22 and he's 38 and a deadbeat baby daddy. I personally don't want kids until I'm in my 30s with a husband. Commenter 1. This guy sounds like a creep. Who is he to dictate what you do with your life, your career, and your body? I hope your sister knows about this and supports you. NTA. Reply. My sister who is with him wholeheartedly supports him and that I should be a stay-at-home. She wants me to apologize to keep the damn peace, but I told her I'm done keeping the peace. He also supports the abortion ban, which is his opinion. Me on the other hand is pro-choice. He wants a national abortion ban even for rape and incest, which makes me nervous to be in a room with him. She also supports this. I clarifies on the relationship of her sister's children and the current boyfriend. Reply. 3 out of 4 kids aren't even his. One of her baby daddies was and still is never in the picture, and the other one is an amazing father. They, editor's note, sister and current BF, got together last year and he's been giving me the creeps since then. We even tried to talk some sense into my sister about him, but she doesn't see it, so we just let her do her own thing. She has 3 baby daddies, 4 kids, none of them are dead. One of her baby daddies isn't and never was in the picture, and that's her oldest and her second youngest kid's dad. Her middle child's father is and will forever be in the picture. I'm very close to my middle nephew's dad. He is like a big brother to me. Me and my sister's boyfriend were and never will be close, especially after what happened. Is there a reason why the BF is targeting OOP to do this? Reply. My sisters think it's because I'm the youngest out of all 4 of us. All 3 of my older sisters are a year and a half apart from one another than me, and my 3rd oldest sister is 4 years apart. But just because I'm the youngest doesn't make me naive. I have very strong views of what I want my life to be like. Does I live with her sister and the BF? Can she move away? Reply. No, I currently live with my other sister and her daughter, but we all live near each other right now, though I've decided to live with my aunt 30 minutes away from him. I clarifies on if her other sisters have their own families. Reply. They all have kids. I'm the only one who doesn't. The 28-year-old sister is a SOM. The 27-year-old sister has a job and a relationship. Her boyfriend is the SAHD. The 26-year-old sister is a single mother. She's the one I live with. Did my sister work before she got together with her BF? Reply. She worked restaurants and gas stations. She's a high school dropout, which again I have no problems with that either. Update. So this is the update. I already knew I was going to go no contact with her boyfriend, as I don't feel safe around him, but I went ahead and called my sister to tell her and why I chose no contact with, and she is now super mad at me saying I overreacted and all that fun stuff. So I asked her if they were going to apologize and she said they don't owe me an apology and I owe him an apology. He overheard us on the phone and once again got into the conversation, and I told him I have nothing to say to him. He told me he wanted to know an answer to 2 of his questions. Why I don't want to be STHM, told him it's none of this business and to stay in his lane. Why I don't want to date/marry his friend, told him that he isn't my type and never will be, and to not talk to me again. He told me if I don't stop overreacting I won't have anything to do with my nephews and niece, and that NGL got to me, and I told him for my mental health I'm done being/talking to him, and my sister said okay, you made your choice and we will make ours, so now I'm no contact with both of them. Also found out my dad found out yesterday, and this morning after I was on phone with them he went and yelled at Josh and told him to back off and that his daughter wasn't for sale or anything like that, and they got into a fist fight and apparently my dad won. I'm not totally sure about that though, and my dad called me and apologized and asked me personally why I don't want to be a stay-at-home mother, so I told him the reason, which had to do with my dad, stepmom, and he apologized to me saying that he never meant to do that to her. He was very abusive to her. At one point I saw him choke her and screamed, and he let her go but never apologized for it. So I decided to cut off my sister and her boyfriend, which sucked cause I won't able to see my niece and nephews anymore, but my mental health and physical health is more important to me, to be honest. Additional information from regarding her sister and the BF. There is one more thing that was said that I forgot to mention. So in my last post about this there were so many PPL telling me to ask him when he's going to marry my sister since they are not living in God's plan, so I asked him. His response was, "It's not my business to know," to which I said then it's not his business to know anything about what I do with my body and who I date and all that. He got angry with me and proceeded to cuss me out. I honestly just laughed. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. your sister is with a man that is able to get into a fist fight with her father, OOP's father? Reply, yes apparently. NGL though, he wasn't always a great father, he was abusive to all of us, especially my older brother who is 30 years old. But he's changed and got help for his angry and all that, but he's always an amazing grandpa, but I'm sure after what with my sister's boyfriend they will cut him off too. We all never liked her boyfriend, my dad especially. Commenter 2, your father hasn't changed though, he just beat up his own son-in-law. Granted, his son-in-law deserved it, but your sister is in an abusive relationship and is too stupid to see it, most likely due to what she was subjected to by your father when she was growing up. Reply, probably I just like to see the best of my dad, so that's probably why in my mind I think he's changed. I was in an abusive relationship until September of 2023 when I decided to end it cause he put in the hospital for almost a week. I think my dad saw him in my sister's boyfriend and that's why he kept telling her he wasn't a good partner to have. Did I see her father assault her stepmother? Reply, yeah, I was 10 years old when it happened. It was my stepmom, she was a stay-at-home mom and they both heard me scream and he let her go and my aunt called 911 and he was arrested, but she didn't want to file charges so he was let go. They haven't been together since, but she raised me most of my life. I expands on how her dad has changed and how this has affected him of her sister's relationship with the BF and past relationship. Reply, I'm grateful for my dad, he's changed a lot over the years because all his kids, he has 6 kids, from 30 to 19, and we all told him either get help or no contact and he chose to get help. He's not perfect though, but nobody is. And I was in an abusive relationship from 17 to 21 and it took me 6 times to leave before I finally left, and I promised myself that in the future I'll never put myself through that or be around PPL like that. She knows deep in her heart if she really wants to leave, I'll do my best to help her through it, but I can't stay around her if I don't feel safe around both of them. Has got therapy to deal with the possible unresolved issues she has? Reply, NGL no, in my family we don't exactly open up at all, we just hold it in until we explode. I'm making an appointment next week, I need to get better mentally and emotionally before dating again, which I don't exactly plan to do for a couple more years, but thank you for the advice, I appreciate it a lot. Stories number 14. The guy, 22M, that I, 21F, am dating is learning ASL for my brother, but my friends think it's creepy. How do I proceed with this? I, 21F, met John, 22M, in a college class last semester. He's an overall great guy, and he's very respectful and kind. He also has a great sense of humor, and we have lots of similar interests. We've been friends since then, and we've started dating this July. He's the first person I've ever dated in my life. Last September, he met my family when I visited home for my brother's birthday. My brother, Trev, 19M, has been deaf since birth, so my whole family communicates with him either through sign language, Trev's lip reading, but we still just sign as reflex, or through text. During our small celebration at home, it was clear that my parents liked John. He was very charming, funny, and respectful. He even tried to connect with Trev by typing some of his jokes for Trev to read, although my brother could lip read as well. Whenever John would tell a story, either I or my parents would sign for Trev. My parents said that they're happy that I found a sweet and caring guy in John. Of course, I'm glad to hear this. Before we went back, John and Trev had a quick Call of Duty gaming session for someone with Trev's condition. He is a really talkative guy, lol. He's very expressive and likes to communicate a lot, especially when gaming. Of course, he couldn't outright trash talk, but he does the closest thing with his hands. So, there we were at Trev's room, with John and Trev playing while I was translating for them. I was laughing way too hard because Trev was trying his best to trash talk John, like saying he's weak and trying to say all these expletives, but I'm trying my best to tone it down for John. Meanwhile, I'm also translating John's instructions and strategies for Trev also, because this was the first time John met my family. He was saying all these praises to Trev like good job or we can do it better next time, although I know that deep inside, he also wants to trash talk my brother. The two of them got along pretty well, and they've been having some online gaming sessions since then. 2 weeks ago, John visited home along with me again for my mom's birthday there. He surprised everyone, including me, by communicating with Trev through ASL. John was still at the alphabets, some basic words, and some rehearsed phrases. But we were all delighted that he even made the effort. Trev's face lit up, and I've never seen him happier having a new long-term friend with low communication barriers. Apparently, John had been watching some YouTube tutorials and got a free subscription to Skillshare to learn ASL. The two of them had a gaming session again, and this time, John and Trev could communicate more directly. Of course, it was still kinda slow and I still had to do some translating. Imagine trying to baby talk to a grown man or talking to a caveman with choppy sentences, lol. But I could tell Trev was having a great time. They also got more comfortable with each other with more explicit trash talking, which I didn't tone down this time. John had been religiously learning ASL since then, and he's making a lot of progress. I was so happy with this, so I told my close friend group from high school. However, most of my friends, especially my closest guy friend, told me that what John was doing was a red flag because it could be a form of obsession and emotional manipulation. He also said it was creepy because John's becoming too attached to my family when we've only been dating about 5 months. He also said that John might only be doing it so he could get laid or something. I know there's some validity to what my friend said, but I'm not really convinced. John has been a wonderful and sincere guy the entire time, and I know it's naive to say this because he's my first ever relationship, but I can see this becoming long-term. Yes, we haven't hooked up yet because I told him I wasn't ready yet, and he never pressured me to do it. However, is his behavior something I should really be concerned about? Again, I don't have any experience with dating and relationships, so I don't know if this is something that's truly concerning. My friends are pushing for me to break up with John, but I'm not sure how do I proceed with this. TLDR, I've been dating a guy for 5 months. He met my family 2 months ago and had befriended my brother, who is deaf. The two of them have been gaming with each other ever since. The guy I've been dating has apparently been learning ASL to communicate with my brother better. However, my friends said that his behavior could be seen as obsessive, emotionally manipulative, and downright creepy. How do I proceed with this? Edit. Wait, whoa, I took a break to work on a paper and there are now almost 1K comments. I'll try to process everything, but thank you for your kind words, Reddit. Yes, John is a wonderful guy and has so far given me no reasons to doubt his sincerity. It's only my friends who planted the seeds in my mind since they've all had experiences with dating and relationships, so the pressure kinda got to me. Thank you for all your insights. Edit 2. I went to class and did a lot of schoolwork, came back to this post with over 4K comments. I didn't expect this. I'll make sure to read and process everything, but so far, I'd like to thank everyone who weighed in on this. A lot of your insights have been truly eye-opening, and it really looks like I've got a lot of reflection to do with my relationships and connections again. Thank you so much. Top comments. Commenter 1. Your friends are thieves of joy. A guy that likes you is going out of his way to learn how to communicate with your brother. That's adorable. Don't let your friends shit on it. Commenter 2. They're also angry that he's making them look bad. You have close friends you've known for years and they never made the effort to learn some ASL to talk with your brother. Nice friends. Commenter 3. This is at 100. This isn't very different than a traveler spending time to learn some basic phrases before they head to a country it's considered considerate. John is a considerate person. OP's friends, less so. Commenter 4. This is a great example. OP's family is bilingual and John is learning the other language they use at home. Commenter 5. I think your closest friend likes you. Your BF sounds wonderful. Don't listen to their nonsense. I'm happy for you and for your brother that John is so kind. Don't let your friend's jealousy make you doubt yourself or John. Commenter 6. 100% the closest guy, friend, is jealous. Update, 1 month later. Sorry, this is gonna be a long one. This will be an update to my original post, but I'll also try to address some of the frequently asked questions. TLDR of my original post, I've been dating a guy, John, 22M, for 5 months. This is my first relationship. He met my family 2 months ago and had befriended my brother, Trev, 19M, who is deaf. The two of them have been gaming with each other ever since. The guy I've been dating has apparently been learning ASL to communicate with my brother better. However, my friends said that his behavior could be seen as obsessive, emotionally manipulative, and downright creepy. First off, I wanted to thank everyone who gave their insights in my original post. As I said, I'm very new to relationships, so reading insights other than my inner circles was very eye-opening. To begin, many Redditors said that my high school friends are conniving, untrustworthy, and ableist people who never bothered learning ASL despite knowing me for a long time. I take accountability for this. I'm not saying they're blameless, but it's not entirely their fault. For some context, our family moved to our area when I was in senior year of high school due to my dad's job. The friend group, 2 guys plus 2 girls before I joined, was already tight when I came in. They then took me in after we got grouped together for a school project, and they've been with me since. We've been friends for about 4 years now. They're not exactly saints, but they helped me survive my senior year in one piece. They are fun to hang out with, and they were the support I needed when I was struggling. Also, during that time, my brother was having an especially hard time adjusting because of his disability, so my friends never really saw Trev a lot. To be clear, I was never ashamed of Trev. It's just that whenever my friends came over, he either locked himself in his room or was in a different area with his tutor and never really interacted with us. Whenever he does come out, he's really shy and awkward, so my friends mostly just get glimpses of him. By the time Trev became more comfortable in our area and found his own circle, my friends and I had already graduated from high school and don't really hang out regularly anymore. They're friendly and polite with Trev, but then again, they never interacted as much to the point of them actually needing to learn ASL for him. Now, for the update. Last week, my friend group had our year-ender party and I decided to bring John along to meet the rest of my friends. My other friend in the group also brought his girlfriend, so this wasn't really weird. Others have done so in the past as well. I've commented in the previous post that John had only met my closest guy friend, I'll call him Mike. 21M, so I wanted the rest of them to form their own opinions of John after they've met him. Initially, there was some tension and awkwardness from my friend group toward John. They were a bit cold, and they were throwing some harsh remarks toward him. Eventually though, they all warmed up to him, and they were actually pleasantly surprised by his personality. We all got along well, and we all even had fun in our games. However, I could tell that there was still awkward tension coming from Mike toward John and the rest of our group. He was throwing meaner jokes more than usual, and he's kind of isolating himself from the activities. The day after the party, I had lunch with my closest girlfriend, Sophie, 21F, to clear the air because I could tell that they could also sense something was off. A lot of Redditors speculated that Mike had a crush on me and was jealous of my relationship with John. Turns out, you're all 10,000% correct, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Apparently, Mike has had a crush on me since our senior year high school. However, he's known in our school as a notorious ladies' man and had a new girl with him almost every month. This got exponentially worse during college. He had different hookups almost every night, and he even had a pregnancy scare with a girl last year. I knew about all of this because he bragged about sleeping around every time we meet up. What I didn't know was that the entire time, Mike has been making up fake stories about me and him. Sophie told me that apparently, Mike and I had a pact that if we were still both single when we're 30, we'd marry each other. Also, he told our friend group that we hooked up after graduation and that he took my virginity then. So he's my special person, whatever that means. He also told them that we've been secretly hooking up consistently throughout college. For context, Mike and I go to different universities that are just about 30 minutes apart. Lastly, Mike told them that I said I'm in love with him. He told our friends not to tell me anything so I don't get embarrassed or upset, since I have this image of being somewhat of a prude. Mike also told our friend group that when he met John, he thought that John is a total jerk who has been manipulating me and taking advantage of my innocence and naivete. He said that John had been forcing himself into my family and is driving a wedge between me and my friends. Mike also said that after he had lunch with me and John, he tried to convince me to stay away from John because he's not a good influence on me, but John had effectively brainwashed me. This explains why my friend group was already so antagonistic toward John when I told them about him. For the record, none of what Mike said was true. There was no pact, we never hooked up, and I have never been in love with him. After that, Sophie and I asked the rest of our friend group, except Mike, to jump on a FaceTime call with us. They all shared different versions of what Mike told them. There were a lot more, but I disputed everything. We were all collectively shocked about everything that we learned that day. They apologized for their behavior toward me and John, and I told them I understood given all the lies fed to them by Mike. Then, everyone agreed to kick Mike off the friend group. Sophie suggested that maybe we could have an intervention for Mike first, but I just said that I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. The rest of the group agreed. So we're essentially cutting him off. Sophie said she would still talk to him just to inform him of everything that happened, but I really just wanted to distance myself from him. Now, it's been a week of being Mike-free. Sophie said that when she and our other guy friend talked to Mike, he became extremely defensive, confrontational, and aggressive. He wasn't physically violent, but he called them names, attacked their characters, and made such awful statements about everyone in our friend group that I won't include here anymore. It looks like cutting him off completely was the right call. Now, for some more uplifting updates. After reading everyone's comments in my previous post, there were a lot. I reflected on my relationship with John and my friends. I then talked to my parents for advice, since they have the best relationship I know of. They told me that from what they saw of John when he visited our home and how I spoke of him, it seems like he is a legitimately nice person with pure intentions. It also helps that John and I have been friends for months before we started dating, so I already knew his character. Even when there was less pretense of him trying to impress me, he's already impressive on his own though. LOL. I then told John about everything that happened and apologized, fully expecting him to be mad at me for doubting him and his intentions. Instead, he said he understood, because of course it was just natural for me to trust my friends and expect them to have my best interests. He then asked me if there was any point in our relationship when I felt uncomfortable or uneasy around him, and I categorically said no. I told him that he's my safe space, and he has nothing to worry about. He then reassured me that his intentions with me are genuine, and he even said that he sees a future with me, which I reciprocated. Also, John and Trev's friendship is still going strong. Trev has participated in one of John's D&D sessions with his friends, and John and I both acted as the translators. We were delighted to see that most of John's friends already know ASL alphabet. Apparently, they had even included it in the lore of their D&D campaign. Also, Trev had been asking John some tips for working out and getting fit lately since they have the same body type, but John is more toned. One of his brothers is a fitness instructor. Also, I met John's family for the first time for their annual get-together. It was super fun. There were games and contests also. I wasn't prepared for it, but apparently, since their mom is a theater performer and their dad is a music producer, it was their family tradition to have a talent showcase. They gave me a pass this time, but they told me I should prepare something impressive for next year. LOL. John and his brothers performed Bye 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 by Eneswensi in full Deadpool, Wolverine, and Captain America costumes, while his sisters and their husbands did Defying Gravity from Wicked. Their parents did a medley from The Sound of Music. It was a total blast. I felt their family's warm welcome, and they really treated me as one of their own. I could see where John got his good values and looks from, though I think I need to start taking voice and dance lessons to keep up with them lol. So, that's it for this update. My relationship with John is stronger than ever, and I finally know who my true friends are. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for your time. Happy New Year to us all. TLDR, my male best friend has a crush on me and has been making up stories and feeding lies to our other friends, tarnishing the image of my boyfriend. I have cleared things out with my other friends, and we've cut off our toxic friend from our friend group. My relationship with my boyfriend is now stronger than ever. Comments. Commenter 1. Let's cut straight to the chase. Mike is a pathological liar who fabricated an entire relationship with you while actively trying to sabotage your genuine connection with John. This guy spread vicious lies about taking your virginity and made up stories about secret hookups. That's sexual harassment. Straight up, the fact that he became aggressive and hostile when confronted shows his true colors. Your friend group's initial reaction to John speaks volumes about the power of malicious lies and how they can poison perfectly healthy relationships. They were all ready to believe the worst about John, that he was manipulative and creepy for making a genuine effort to communicate with your deaf brother. Meanwhile, they completely bought into Mike's absurd fiction about your supposed relationship without ever verifying it with you. The fact that Mike felt entitled to spread intimate lies about you reveals his profound disrespect for your autonomy. When someone is learning ASL to communicate better with your brother, organizing D&D sessions where everyone learns the alphabet, and getting your brother involved in fitness, that's not creepy, that's someone who genuinely cares about becoming part of your family's world. The stark difference between John's actions and Mike's reveals everything. John is actively building bridges and fostering connections, while Mike was busy constructing elaborate lies to isolate you. Your clarity about John's character comes through in how you describe your early friendship. Before dating, you knew who he was before romance entered the picture. His surprising everyone by learning ASL wasn't some calculated move, it was a natural extension of the caring person you already knew him to be. The way he handled learning about Mike's lies is particularly telling. Instead of getting defensive or angry, he showed concern for your comfort and security in the relationship. Trust your gut on this one, it's already telling you everything you need to know. Who's the real creep here? The guy learning a new language to communicate with your family, or the one who made up sexual stories about you and tried to isolate you from a healthy relationship? Your boyfriend isn't just making an effort with your family, he's showing you what real love and respect look like. The kind of warmth and inclusion John demonstrates doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from someone who sees your family as his family and values genuine connections over manipulation and lies. Reply, NGL, I became more and more furious with every lie that Sophie and my other friends told me Mike had said about me. It felt like I was in an episode of Black Mirror or some psychological thriller or something, because all this time, my friend group apparently had this different image of me based on lies. I've also told my parents about Mike, they knew him pretty well too, and they said they knew from the start that he was up to no good. I was just too bratty to listen to them when they warned me back then. Right now, I'm just glad this is all behind me. I'm also really grateful that I found a wonderful man in John, who had been extremely loving and understanding throughout all this. Commenter 2. It's almost funny, with all the things he said about John, Mike was really describing himself. Good riddance. Commenter 3. Then, everyone agreed to kick Mike off the friend group. I believe this is called a mic drop. Stories number 15. Aita for telling my ex's mom why we broke up. Update. He came over, uninvited, this morning and we got into another altercation. Police were called and he was arrested. I planned on filing a report after all the advice on here anyways. He just made it easier by being an idiot. Thank you for all your replies. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did. I, 27F, broke up with my boyfriend, 33M, a few days before Christmas. His mom reached out to me right after Christmas saying she missed me and hoped I was feeling better and that she'd see me soon. I was supposed to go to his parents for Christmas, but obviously didn't since I broke up with him. That's when I realized that he must not have told them we broke up, and even lied that the reason I wasn't there was because I was sick. I reached out to him and told him. He said he hadn't told his parents yet and it's not their business. Fast forward to a few days before NYE and she texted me, asking if I was coming over to their family party. I told her no and said that we'd broken up. When she asked why, I told her to ask her son. He texted me flipping out saying that he'd already said it wasn't their business and to leave his family alone. I told him that she was the one who reached out to me, and the only reason I told her was because I didn't want her to keep texting me. I told him I didn't tell her why, and told her to ask him. Last weekend I heard through a mutual friend that he was going around telling people that he broke up with me because I'm crazy. I was upset that he had the nerve to be badmouthing me and lying, trying to make me look like the bad guy when I was keeping my mouth shut on what really happened in reality. He got blackout drunk and got physical. So, I told the mutual friend the true story, including photos of my injuries. I then also forwarded the same photos and story to his mom. I said, just so you know the true reason we broke up. I heard he's spinning the story against me. Your son is abusive and has hurt me on numerous occasions. I wish you the best, but I wanted to clear up whatever he may have told you. She was super apologetic and took my side. Then my ex blew up my phone flipping out, saying what happened between us is no one else's business. I had no plans on sharing that with our friends or his family, but when I heard that he was calling me crazy I felt like it was only fair to say what actually happened. Did I cross the line though? I feel like maybe I was an in saying that to his mom, instead of just telling our mutual friend. Stories number 16. I just swiped left on 200 Bumble likes. Holy shit, every single man in the 30s age range that has swiped on me, either listed as apolitical, moderate or conservative, one was listed as liberal, and conversation has been stale, so I don't think it's going to pan out, and this isn't even close to my first iteration of this. They really don't get it, do they? I cared about nothing in their profile if it did not list liberal. I own a car, a house, and I have a job. Great, me too. How about showing that you support women's rights? How about showing some personality? If you are apolitical or moderate, I read that as either a Joe Rogan bro or someone who doesn't care about politics, neither of which is okay for any woman who cares about her rights and being treated as an equal. Ugh, dating is the worst. I just don't understand how men my age, 30s, just haven't gotten the memo yet. That is sounding nicer and nicer by the day. ETA, for those telling me to give moderate apolitical a chance. I'm going to copy and paste this comment reply I made, and I encourage you to check my post history. Last time I let my guard down, I ended up in an abusive marriage of 10 years. He was a complete gentleman, had great manners, and was so super respectful that I almost thought he was boring. We even had 2 kids together. Sound familiar? Until I finally got physically and sexually assaulted 8 years into it, tried to tell his family and they isolated me further instead of helping me, eventually had to find the strength to escape to a women's shelter and start over. I have my own place now and I have an interview to get my old job back today. I am never risking being with another man that has ambiguous, unclear anti-woman political opinions. Let me say this, I'd literally rather die alone. I won't really be alone, I'll be surrounded by my kids, maybe grandkids, and friends, than be with another non-liberal/leftist man. Stories number 17. Aita for not cleaning my sister-in-law after she got sick drunk. Not the a-hole. Between Christmas and New Year's, me, 43M, and my wife, 43F, went to hang out and drink at my sister-in-law's, 32F, house while her husband, wife's brother, and son went away for a few nights. Basically a normal night. My wife and I went over to keep my sister-in-law company, played board games, drank etc. My sister-in-law is very proper, fashionable, basic white girl, maybe 5 feet 2 inches and 100 pounds anyhow. We're in the living room. My wife passes out on the couch, so we decide to call it a night, sleeping on the couch. My sister-in-law gets up to go to bed. A little wobbly, but she goes into the bathroom and shuts the door. I play on my phone for about 45 minutes and I notice she's still in the bathroom, so I knock on the door with no response. I knock a few more times, then open the door to look, and she's a naked pooper. She passed out while pooping apparently and fell off the toilet onto the floor somewhere. In all that, she puked all over herself, so I'm left with a completely naked woman covered in puke, poop and pee. I try to wake my wife up, but she's out cold. I try to wake my sister-in-law up, but she's out cold, so I grab a bunch of towels. Just do a quick cleanup, get the heavy stuff off of her, clean up the floor, and made her a bed of towels so she didn't have to sleep on the cold tile, propped her head on a folded towel as a pillow and used a giant fluffy towel as a blanket. Here's why I'm told I'm an asshole. She was mad I let her lay in poop/puke all night. I should have picked her up and put her in the tub and bathed her. She was passed out drunk. I didn't think she wanted me touching her intimate areas, where she replied that I have a wife and daughter. I've seen a vagina before and I've changed my daughter's diapers/bath, so I know how to clean a vagina/breast. She's only 100 pounds, so it would have been easy for me. My wife sides with me, but the other women say that I should have cleaned her better. So am I an asshole? Would you want someone touching you while you're passed out? Stories number 18. Aita for telling my half-siblings I won't drop my dad for them. When I, 24M, was 7, my mom died. I had 2 younger half-siblings who were 4 and 3 at the time. They had different dads. The older of my 2 half-siblings was born as the result of an affair mom had while she was married to dad. He found out about the affair before mom gave birth and got a DNA test, so he didn't have to be responsible for the baby. He had to do the same again because mom got pregnant again before the divorce was finalized and had to prove he wasn't the father. It was apparently a really big fight because she wanted him to raise the 3 of us and he said never. My mom had primary custody of me and full custody of my half-siblings because neither had their dad in the picture. When mom died, I went to live with dad and they were separated from each other and placed apart. I never saw them for the rest of our childhoods, but eventually, as I learned, our mom's family were found and took them both, and they had no idea we existed. They reached out to me last year. We talked some. They told me about mom's family. They asked about my life. It was going okay between us for a while, but then they started to tell me my dad was an asshole and how dare he let them go into foster care. How he was responsible for separating us, and they told me I shouldn't have anything more to do with him. They didn't like that I was close with my dad. I said we needed to drop that line of conversation, but they wouldn't. They said he should never have allowed us to be separated and a real man would have taken them on when they had nobody else. The time they were in foster care was shitty and they've opened up about it. They blame my dad for it, but even if it makes me an asshole, I don't, he's not their father and wasn't in their lives when mom was alive. I tried to keep building a relationship with them, but when they gave me an ultimatum I told them I won't drop dad for them. They said I should go to hell and think about what a disgusting POS I was standing by. Aita. Stories number 19. Aita for trying to get my neighbors to not block my front door. I, 32F, live in NYC. I recently moved into a small building, 3 stories, 6 apartments in total. My apartment is a ground floor unit from move-in. A neighbor, 40F and 40M, has been storing their large stroller in front of my front door, which poses problems every time I have to come and go from my apartment. It is also against fire code and explicitly forbidden in the building's leases. The stroller is there every day, unless their kid, 3M, decides he doesn't want to walk. One day when I heard them leaving it there, I introduced myself and politely said them leaving their stroller there was causing me issues and it is against the city's fire code, and asked them to no longer keep their stroller in front of my front door. The 40F neighbor gave me excuses that they live on the 3rd floor, but the 40M neighbor straight up raised his voice at me. While I was holding my infant daughter, the woman said as a compromise she'd fold the stroller when leaving it front of my door. As time went on, the stroller was never folded up and continued to block my door as it is against fire code, and explicitly forbidden in the lease. I decided to reach out to property management for help resolving this issue. I just want to be able to safely come and go from my apartment. The day the property management enforced this on these neighbors, the 40F neighbor rang my doorbell, and proceeded to refuse to speak to me and called her mother. Her mother then berated me on speakerphone and said I should have spoken to them first, ignoring me when I said I did. She then kind of threatened me saying I complained about the wrong people. I was stunned and couldn't believe this was happening. All I could muster was insisting it is against fire code and no one gets to break fire code. I am baffled by this behavior. I found it a bizarre confrontation and I didn't know adults could act this way. I've never had issues with neighbors before. I have a child younger than theirs and empathize with their situation, but their kid is massive and able to walk. They could just have an umbrella stroller, like I do. I just wanted access to my front door. Aita. TLDR neighbor in small apartment building breaks fire code and blocks my front door and ignores polite personal request to stop. I take it up with building management. The neighbor initiated bizarre confrontation with her mother on speakerphone, making vague threats. Aita. Edit. I appreciate the outside perspective. I didn't think I was TA, but I do have hardcore people-pleasing tendencies and it was very clear my actions hurt people's feelings, and it gave me self-doubt. The reason I engaged with the mother on the phone at all is bizarre too. It's all just too weird and I'm feeling a little LOL. The 40F neighbor has an unusual way of speaking. I haven't been able to work out if it is an accent or what. When she put the mother on speakerphone I had a sinking thought that maybe the 40F neighbor is deaf and needs someone to talk for her, and I felt bad that maybe I'd made a deaf person feel victimized when they can't speak up for themselves. But like, she clearly wasn't deaf. Her mother was just on speakerphone with no video and she had zero issues following the conversation. Apart from this incident and the other shitty neighbor stuff this woman and her man have pulled, they seem like normal functional adults. The man does not have an unusual way of speaking. I don't think her unusual way of speaking is really a factor in whether I'm TA, and I have been so eager to be polite and respectful. It became clear very quickly the phone call wasn't really about helping in communication, but just messy people expressing their anger as much as possible. But yeah, that's why I let the phone call happen messy. Stories number 20. Aita for forcing a DNA test on my kids because of my wife's past infidelity. I had been married to my wife for 10 years. Early in our relationship, she cheated on me. After a lot of therapy and rebuilding, I forgave her and we decided to move forward. We now have 2 children, a 7-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. Recently, I stumbled across messages from an old friend that dredged up feelings of doubt. These messages weren't about new infidelity but reminded me of the betrayal from years ago. It planted a nagging thought. What if the kids aren't mine? I brought up the idea of DNA tests to my wife, explaining it wasn't about mistrusting her now but needing peace of mind. She was furious, calling it a betrayal of the trust we've rebuilt. She refused the tests, saying it's insulting to our family. Still, I went ahead and tested our children without her knowledge. The results confirmed I'm the biological father, but when my wife found out, she was devastated. She's been distant and cold since, saying my actions proved I never truly forgave her. I believe my request was valid given her history, but now our relationship feels like it's crumbling all over again. My wife says I've hurt our marriage more than her affair did. Aita. Stories number 21. Aita for telling someone to stop mentioning their allergies when we go out to restaurants. I have a family member, 31F, that sees an allergist and claims that they're allergic to nearly everything under the sun, including things I've seen them eat for years with no issues. The past 2 times we've gone out to eat, they mentioned their level 5 allergy, and the look of panic that ensues on the waiters' faces gives me secondhand embarrassment. The first time, we went out to an Italian restaurant, where they made a scene about their level 5 garlic allergy to the waiter. They had ordered a pizza, and claimed that the pizza had never given them problems before but that they cannot have any garlic. The manager came back and said that all their pizzas have garlic. My family member then said, "Oh, that's okay then, is it a level 5 allergy if you can eat it?" They were also perfectly fine and didn't complain during or after the meal. The second time, we went to a Chinese restaurant. They ordered a seafood soup. Then, I have a level 5 allergy to fish. The waiter looked completely flabbergasted. Then her mom starts explaining that they've had the soup before but that they just don't eat the shrimp. The waiter then explained that the rest of the soup would have made contact with the shrimp again. It's fine, I've had it before, I'm just allergic, so why bring it up? I finally said last night that they really need to knock it off. Every time she pipes up with the allergy talk, she orders something that directly contains what she's allergic to. I'm not an allergist, but I'm pretty sure that if you can eat the food with no symptoms or discomfort, you're not allergic. All she's doing is causing panic for the waiter and turning herself into a liability if she did have an allergy. Aita TLDR, family member says she has various level 5 allergies, but continues to eat what she claims she's allergic to. I told her to knock it off because she's obviously not allergic and is just causing problems for the sake of attention. Stories number 22. Aita for telling my GF and family that if they make me abandon my dog I will disappear from their lives. My girlfriend, F26, always wanted to adopt a dog. M29, didn't since I had a dog for 14 years and it broke my heart when my dog passed away after some time together. 3 years, we adopted a dog, who's a pup of her family's dogs. My dog has always been a handful since he was a wee pup. Only listening to me and no one else. My girlfriend and I do not live together, but we stay very close to each other. My mother lives with me, I own the house. Despite being mainly my GF's desire to get a dog, she never stepped up to the responsibilities of dog ownership. Be it financial or otherwise. Every time I was asking her to contribute by paying his food or even walking him, she would sigh before saying yes. I would be spending 4 to 5 hours each day with my dog, walking him for 10 kilometers per day and playing with him. About a month ago, we sent him for training. Couple of days ago, the trainer made us go down to the K9 training center only to tell us that the dog is untrainable and I should get him out of there immediately. OFC, I paid for it. When it came to decide what to do next, send him to another trainer or keep him home with its current amount of training, basic commands that I taught him when he was a pup. Both my mother and girlfriend made it quite clear that their lives were better without the dog. For the former, I made it clear from the start that my house, my rules, and for the latter I made clear that she wanted a dog and never stepped up to the role. They were pretty adamant and felt deflated once I made my intentions clear. I told them that abandoning that dog, probably to a farmer since he's a working breed, would be equivalent to tearing a limb off me. I told them that in case I am forced to abandon my dog I would sell everything off and disappear. I work remotely so it's very easy for me to do. What should I do? Aita for saying so. Edit. The trainer said my dog is untrainable due to the fact that he hasn't acclimated to the training center after a month being there and that he requires 2 people, women, to walk him because he pulls a lot. He is very willful. Literally no other person than me can make him change his mind. That's the reason I sent him to a training center. So my GF and her family may walk him when I am too busy. He hasn't bitten anyone, but unfortunately when he was younger he might have chewed a couple of slippers and shoes, and even one of my favorite sweaters, but nothing like that for the past 6 months. Stories number 23. Aita for calling out a guy at Walmart who was screaming at his kid. So this happened today and I honestly feel conflicted about whether I overstepped or not. I, 27M, was at Walmart doing my usual grocery run. It was late, probably around 9:30 p.m., so the store wasn't super crowded. I was in the cereal aisle, just minding my business, when I overheard a man, maybe in his 40s, absolutely losing his temper with his kid. The kid couldn't have been older than 7 or 8, and the dad was yelling at him so loudly that I could hear every word from the other end of the aisle. I'm talking about things like, "You're so useless. Why do you always make everything harder for me?" And, "If you don't shut up, I'm leaving you here." It was honestly pretty hard to listen to, especially because the kid sounded terrified and started crying. I wasn't sure what to do at first. Should I mind my business or step in? After a few more minutes of this, I couldn't just stand there anymore, so I walked up to the guy and said, "Hey man, you need to calm down. That's your kid, not a punching bag." He turned around and started yelling at me, saying it wasn't any of my business and that I was ruining his day. He told me to mind my own damn business and that I had no idea what kind of day he had at this point. I'm standing there thinking, I'm not letting this slide. I told him, "Well, maybe you should try talking to your kid like a human, not a piece of trash." He was still yelling at me when an employee came over and asked if everything was okay. The guy just walked off in a huff, and the employee thanked me for speaking up. I was really shaken by the whole thing. It felt like the dad wasn't even bothered by the fact that he was verbally abusing his kid, but at the same time, I feel weird about confronting a stranger in front of his child. I talked to my girlfriend about it, and she said I did the right thing, but I'm still wondering if I was wrong to get involved. It's not like I was in a position to parent the guy, but I felt like someone needed to say something. Aita for stepping in when it wasn't my business. Stories number 24. My home is on fire and I have no one to talk to about it. It feels really strange to type this out. I think by now we've all heard about the fires in Los Angeles, and to say my childhood home is gone, in a way it doesn't feel real, like it's only some figment of my childhood imagination, or something from a bad movie I've been forced to see. I grew up there. The restaurants my family frequented are gone, the beaches I could spend hours walking set aflame, the places that hold so many memories, good, bad, and very ugly, now orange and red. My childhood home, gone. a house that still hides the echoes of abuse and neglect now buried beneath fire. The rest of my family doesn't understand. They hate the fact I lived in California to begin with. I want to scream and cry, but it won't do me any good. I'm homesick and can't stay far enough away at the same time. The place that shaped who I am today is gone, replaced by a fire without upcoming rain. Edit. House has officially burned down. I am speechless and trying really hard not to cry. It may have been a place of trauma, but was still my home. Thank you so much to everyone here. You all are so kind and so supportive. My heart goes out to anyone who has also been affected by the fires, or by the damage of the hurricane storms. Stories number 25. Aita for telling my supervisor's sobbing wife to leave the office. I, 29F, recently scored a nice job at a real estate small business. Everyone is very friendly and I like it there a lot. Unfortunately, my supervisor, mid-30s, M, is, shall we say, problematic. Let's call him Gene. I've had several small issues with Gene involving sexist language, particularly about our other pregnant coworker, but that's beside the point. Point being, he's kind of an asshole sometimes. So yesterday, Gene got some bad news. After very loudly screaming at someone on the phone for over an hour, he goes out into the hallway and tells me and another coworker, also loudly, he is not hiding this, that apparently he lent a very large sum of money, 5 figures, to his dad, who told him he would invest it in what was basically a get-rich-quick scheme. To no one's shock but Gene's, said scheme didn't work out, and now Gene is 6 figures in total debt. At this point I say, man, that sucks, and go back into my office because I am behind on my work. This is where the sobbing wife comes in. My office shares a wall with Gene, and the walls there are paper thin. I can hear everything. No matter how quietly people talk. Not that quiet meant anything here, as while I was attempting to catch up on work, I start hearing Gene breaking the news that he fucked up to his wife, who also happens to be recently hired by our business. Hired by Gene. Funny that, the wife is, understandably, audibly upset, and she starts crying. This makes Gene angry, and he starts yelling at her to suck it up and calm down because he'll deal with it, and she never has any faith in him, which makes her cry harder. And meanwhile I have been staring at a very important email about to be sent for the past 3 minutes, unable to concentrate due to sobbing woman and asshole man. So I got up and knocked on his door. Opening it revealed a crying woman and Gene, to whom I very quickly rushed out, I'm really sorry, I know you're going through stuff, but can you please take this somewhere else? I was talking directly to Gene, but his wife seemed spooked and a little offended and pissed off. They both quietly skedaddled, and I didn't see her for the rest of the day. I hold absolutely zero sympathy for Gene. He was an idiot who wasted his money on get-rich-quick schemes doomed to fail, doing so while knowing he has a wife and 2 young kids to care for. He's barely been at this job for longer than I have. My real actual boss is a really cool dude, and my overall vibe from Gene is pretty rancid. TLDR, I got fed up with hearing my supervisor scream at his distraught wife, over a fuck-up he did, at work, so I told them to take their drama elsewhere. I don't give a fuck about supervisor, but I feel pretty miserable about being short with the wife.